Chapter 1. He came home late, deep in the night. Bella White had been waiting on the living room sofa, dozing off. She got up, walked over to help him out of his suit jacket, and laid out his slippers. "The bath water is ready, and I've kept dinner warm. Would you like to bathe first or eat?" Ethan Montgomery looked at the petite, soft-spoken woman. She was dressed in a plain housecoat, the apron still tied around her waist, as if afraid no one would know she was a housewife. The handsome man's brow furrowed, his expression cold. In their 3 years of marriage, Bella had been a flawless wife. But for an outstanding man from a wealthy family like Ethan, it was hard to fall for a meek woman whose world revolved solely around him. He waved a dismissive hand. "Neither, I just came back to get a few things." Bella's gentle eyes widened slightly. She asked cautiously, "Are you going on a business trip?" Ethan didn't look at her again, turning toward the bedroom. "To the villa in the distant hills." Bella froze, suddenly wide awake. The villa was a property in Ethan's name. She had seen the news. A woman had moved in there yesterday. It was said to be Vivian Sutton, Ethan's first love. The woman he had never been able to forget. When he emerged with a small suitcase, heading straight for the door, she finally called out to him. She rushed forward and wrapped her arms around his lean waist from behind, her cheek pressing against the warmth of his back. "Please don't go tonight, okay? We've been married for 3 years, and my parents are saying they want grandchildren." She spoke with emotion, but the man in front of her shoved her away as if she were something filthy. When he turned, his eyes were filled with impatience and a warning. "Bella, don't you dare dream of things that aren't meant for you." With that, he strode away. Bella was once again left alone in the vast, empty house. A heart-wrenching pain spread through her like creeping vines. She stared in the direction he had left, tears falling like pearls. 3 years, and he still hadn't fallen in love with her. The next day, Bella took a gift and went to the old family mansion to visit her parents-in-law. Her mother-in-law, Frances Montgomery, had never liked this useless daughter-in-law who had no background. Married into the Montgomery family for 3 years, and you haven't even laid a single egg. Utterly useless. Bella was submissive and didn't dare to talk back, merely helping the maids chop vegetables. Seeing her like this, Frances looked down on her even more, grabbing the fabric of her clothes and speaking sharply, "Look at what you're wearing. Aren't you afraid you'll embarrass Ethan when you go out? Born poor, and you'll never become a phoenix just by clinging to a branch. All you know how to do is cook and clean. No wonder Ethan can only think of Vivian Sutton. At least she's an international supermodel. Look at you, how can you possibly compare to her?" The criticisms came one after another. Bella's heart ached with bitterness, but she didn't offer a single word of rebuttal. For 3 years, she had gotten used to pleasing Ethan, to pleasing her mother-in-law. As long as she could make Ethan love her, she was willing to cast aside all her dignity. The family dinner ended amidst Frances's harsh sarcasm. By the time she had finished clearing the dishes, cleaned up the house, and taken a cab home, it was already dark. Bella stretched her tired arms, only to suddenly notice someone sitting on the sofa. It was Ethan. Her eyes lit up, clearly not expecting him to return. "Ethan, you're back," she said joyfully. "Have you eaten? I'll go make you something." Ethan didn't answer her question. He just stood up and walked toward her, his face grim, his aura chilling. He handed her a document. He looked at her gentle face and spoke coldly. "Bella, let's get a divorce." Chapter 2, the words "divorce agreement" lodged in Bella's throat, silencing her. "Why?" Ethan's expression was devoid of any emotion, as if he couldn't see the tears welling in her eyes. "Vivian is back, we're going to start over." In that instant, Bella felt as if she had been plunged into an ice cellar. Her voice trembled as she asked, "Didn't you say you wouldn't love her anymore?" He had said it. He had clearly said it. 3 years ago, after Vivian Sutton went abroad to pursue her modeling career, she and Ethan had a clean break. How could the proud president of Montgomery Corporation stand to wait for someone? So, in a fit of pique, he found a powerless, easily manipulated woman to marry, and that woman was Bella. When they got married, he had clearly said he would try to stop loving Vivian. That was why, even when she saw the news yesterday, no matter how sensational the rumors were, she refused to believe that the woman living in that villa was Vivian Sutton. She had held onto his promise that he would forget Vivian and try to fall in love with her. Hearing Bella's choked sobs, Ethan remained unmoved. "I tried," he said flatly, "but I can't." He had tried to accept Bella, but she was too soft, too dull, so obedient it was infuriating. Back then, he had needed a wife who was easy to control, someone he could divorce cleanly. But personally, the kind of woman who could truly move his heart had always been one who could match him, a woman who shined. In all these years, only Vivian had ever been that woman. The assets allocated to you in the divorce are clearly stated. The villa is too remote, it's not convenient for me to take care of Vivian there. I'll be bringing her here tomorrow. As for you, leave before she arrives. Just as he finished speaking, Ethan answered a call. It was likely Vivian, because his expression instantly shifted to a gentleness Bella had never seen. I'll be right back to be with you. He then walked past her toward the door and left without a backward glance. Bella stood frozen, as if all the strength had been drained from her body. Her ears were ringing. A single phone call from Vivian, and he would rush back to her side. She remembered when they had just gotten married, he would always work late. Once, she had a high fever and called him a dozen times, but he never picked up. When he finally did, he just had his assistant take her to the hospital. It turned out that someone who doesn't love you will never love you. In the empty living room, staring at the thin divorce agreement in her hands, Bella let out a tragically sad laugh. Ethan Montgomery, for these past 3 years, I was the one who was wrong. A long time later, she wiped away her tears and calmly signed her name on the divorce agreement, but she crossed out all the assets Ethan had given her. She supposed only the Montgomerys would think that she, Bella White, was a penniless nobody. Returning to the bedroom, she gathered her documents and took out the last bottle of perfume she had created 3 years ago from the safe. She placed it on the bedside table. It was originally meant to be his 3rd anniversary gift. Now, it would have to be a farewell present. After walking out of the Montgomery house, the look of meekness and vulnerability in Bella's eyes vanished completely. Though she was still wearing the most ordinary housecoat, her entire aura was worlds apart from before. She took out her phone, dialed a number, and said in a flat tone, "Come pick me up. I'm coming home." The person on the other end sounded thrilled and immediately agreed. In less than 20 minutes, a stunning supercar appeared on the street, moving at lightning speed, finally stopping beside Bella. A man in a black jacket with roguishly handsome features stepped out of the car with a swagger. Finally decided to leave him? The esteemed daughter of the richest man in the city has no need to debase herself. Welcome home, Miss White, Chapter 3. Bella walked forward. Let's go, take me home. After they got in the car, Henry Lancaster studied her expression and raised an eyebrow. So, you've finally seen the light? Done playing Cinderella? I'm done, Bella said, leaning back against the seat, her tone light. She had been so foolish. In her pursuit of a so-called great love, she had disregarded her father's objections and ignored the advice of her childhood friend, Henry, insisting on hiding her identity as the richest man's daughter to become the Montgomery family's looked-down-upon daughter-in-law. She had endured 3 years of humiliation, only now seeing the truth. From now on, she would never be so foolish again. The supercar pulled up to the most luxurious private estate in Jingbei. Henry accompanied Bella inside. The moment she saw her usually stern father with a few more strands of white at his temples, her eyes stung with tears, and she immediately knelt before him. Dad, I'm back. I'm sorry. Quentin White looked at his daughter, who he had doted on her entire life, now looking much more worn than she had 3 years ago. His heart was already aching for her, and seeing her cry made it even worse. Do you truly know you were wrong? Bella had once been willing to sacrifice everything for love, but now that she had completely let go, she was decisive and free. Looking back on those 3 years, she only felt they were foolish and laughable. Dad, I truly know I was wrong. Back then, I was too willful. Only then did Quentin sigh, stroking her hair. Bella, you've had your fun these past few years. Don't forget what you promised me. Marrying that Montgomery boy while hiding your identity was the last time I would indulge you. Since you lost the bet, you have to be obedient and inherit the family business. Bella nodded with red-rimmed eyes. Dad, I know, don't worry. I'll never be willful again. From this day forward, there was no longer Ethan Montgomery's country bumpkin wife. There was only the sole daughter of the wealthiest family in Jingbei, the White family. Bella White. The next day, Ethan brought Vivian Sutton home. The house, which had always been kept warm and welcoming by Bella, was now cold and empty. Had she really left? Ethan stood at the doorway, lost in thought for a moment, before picking up the signed divorce agreement from the coffee table. When he saw that Bella had crossed out all the assets he had given her, a dark glint flashed in his eyes. Just then, Vivian walked over. She saw the agreement and froze. Ethan, she chose to leave with nothing. Ethan's expression turned colder. He tossed the agreement aside. Just a case of cutting off her nose to spite her face. Without the Montgomery family, she's penniless. Before bed, he went back to the bedroom and saw the perfume bottle on the nightstand. He picked up the bottle, which looked exceptionally expensive. When he saw the name on it, Ethan was stunned. Love Actually, the final work of the international perfumer Nancy before she disappeared. It was a limited edition that was no longer available. How could Bella have gotten her hands on it? Ethan's dark eyes stared at the perfume bottle, his thoughts unreadable. After a long while, he took out his phone and dialed a number. His voice was low. Run a check on Bella White. Rural background, middle school education. Was that really the truth? The next day, his assistant gave him the answer. Bella's background information was identical to what he had found 3 years ago. There was pitifully little information on her, just a poor, parentless orphan. After getting the report, Ethan could only suppress the doubts in his heart. At 10 in the morning, Bella officially appeared at the White Group as its CEO. The various mid-level and senior executives of the group were all murmuring about her sudden appearance, assuming that such a young woman would be a pushover. At the first meeting she called, some were deliberately late. Others used the excuse of being busy and worked on their laptops in the conference room, and 2 directly stated they were too busy to attend. They all had reasonable excuses, but it was a clear sign of disrespect. Bella gave a slight nod to the head of HR. Tell the 2 who aren't coming that they have a choice. Attend the meeting or resign. The entire conference room fell silent. They had assumed that as a new leader, Bella would be focused on winning people over and wouldn't dare to offend anyone. But she was ready to fire people on her first day. The HR director stared blankly for a moment before going to fetch the 2 executives. Bella sat calmly in the main seat, her expression serene, until everyone had entered the conference room. It was now 2 hours past the scheduled meeting time. The room was dead silent. Bella looked at the last 2 people to arrive, her starry eyes turning cold. Hello, everyone. I am the new CEO of the group, Bella White. I have a short temper and I don't like to wait. Since this is our first meeting, I'll let it slide. Next time, if you are 1 minute late, you're fired. Chapter 4, by the time the meeting was over, Bella had firmly established her authority in the company. The senior executives realized that this new CEO was no timid rabbit they could easily control. Being shrewder than monkeys, they naturally wouldn't make an enemy of her. After the meeting, her assistant, Lucy, followed her back to the office. Lucy, tell me about the most important tasks at hand. Lucy tapped on her tablet. It's mainly about the promotion of our new perfume brand, Sophie. The perfume development division is a key business the group will be heavily investing in for the next 5 years. The board of directors is taking it very seriously. Bella toyed with a black fountain pen, mulling over Lucy's words. As I recall, SJ Group is planning to enter the market here this year and is looking for a partner, correct? SJ was a beauty industry giant from the United States. Partnering with them to promote their own perfume brand would undoubtedly be a shortcut to success. Lucy's expression was troubled. That's right, but I've heard that the Montgomery Corporation is already in talks with SJ. I'm afraid we might be a step too late. Montgomery Corp? Thinking of Ethan, Bella gave a cold smile. I don't think we're too late at all. She quickly took out her phone and made a call. A day later, Ethan's assistant reported news about the partnership to him. Mr. Montgomery, there's been a change regarding the collaboration with SJ Group. We were close to signing the contract, but now SJ says they want to hold a project bidding conference to select their partner. Ethan's brow darkened. Have you found out why? Apparently, the new CEO of the White Group made a move. The White Group? The news of Chairman White stepping down and a new CEO taking over had caused a stir in the business world, so he had naturally heard about it. But he hadn't expected the new CEO's first move to be snatching a partnership from Montgomery Corp as the wealthiest entity in Jingbei. Even he had to show the White Group some deference. He frowned. Have you found any information on the new CEO? The assistant shook his head. The rumor is that she's the White family's eldest daughter, a genius since childhood who was studying abroad. The family has protected her so well that we can't find any information on her at all. The White family's daughter. Ethan adjusted the gold-rimmed glasses on his ear. This young lady certainly worked with lightning speed. He suddenly felt a flicker of interest in facing off against her. Since we can't find anything, I'll just have to see this young lady's true face at the bidding conference. A week later, SJ held the bidding conference at the Orchid Pavilion Hotel. That day, Bella wore a chic black trench coat, her hair in large waves and her lips painted red. She was captivatingly sexy as she entered the venue on Henry Lancaster's arm. Henry teased her, "Bella, you're about to see your ex-husband again." Bella smiled disdainfully. "I have no time to see him today, nor do I want him to see me." Seeing the cunning glint in her eyes, Henry knew instantly that this young lady was up to no good. Just then, SJ's Asia-Pacific president, Mr. Smith, came down from upstairs. Bella whispered, "Do you know why I came an hour early?" Henry looked at Mr. Smith, then at Bella's confident smile, and said hesitantly, "You want to convince him to partner with the White group beforehand." Exactly. With that, she released his arm and walked directly toward the president. 40 minutes later, Bella and Mr. Smith emerged from a private room upstairs, her eyes shining with confident composure. "Mr. Smith, I promise I won't disappoint you." Mr. Smith shook her hand without saying much, but his expression showed he was very pleased with their conversation. With 10 minutes to go before the bidding conference, Ethan's Bugatti pulled up to the Orchid Pavilion Hotel. A similarly luxurious Maybach was approaching from the opposite direction. Ethan, sitting in the back seat, casually glanced up and caught a faint glimpse of a figure in the other car. His gaze suddenly deepened. As the two cars passed each other, he subconsciously stared at the blurry figure in the other car. Was that? Chapter 5, Mr. Montgomery, we've arrived. It wasn't until the car stopped at the entrance of the Orchid Pavilion Hotel that Ethan snapped back to reality. He hadn't gotten a clear look at the person in the Maybach, but for some reason, he felt a wave of familiarity. Ethan focused for a moment, then decided not to dwell on it, straightening his suit and walking into the hotel. At the bidding conference, however, he never saw the legendary Miss White. Could she have given up? No, that didn't seem like her style. Ethan was both surprised and vaguely uneasy, feeling as if he had missed something important. And then, the day after the bidding, SJ directly announced that the White group was their chosen partner. He was in his office when he received the news. His assistant reported it in a hushed tone, afraid Mr. Montgomery would erupt in anger. This was a first for Montgomery Corp, a deal lost, and it was lost to a young woman who had just taken her post. "Mr. Montgomery, I heard that someone from the White group managed to talk to Mr. Smith before the bidding conference yesterday." Ethan's dark eyes narrowed. He remembered the Maybach from yesterday. He remembered now. The man in the driver's seat was Henry Lancaster, the young master of the Lancaster family. He had seen him at a gala a few years ago. Then the long-haired woman in the passenger seat, whose face he couldn't see clearly, must have been the White family's daughter. She had a powerful aura, just like her decisive way of doing things. Interesting, Ethan suddenly chuckled. In a place like Jingbei, he had never encountered someone who could snatch something right from under his nose. The assistant saw that not only was his boss not angry, but there was a strange glint of a smile in his eyes. The assistant's knees went weak. Mr. Montgomery?" Ethan glanced at him, his expression returning to its usual coldness. "It's nothing, you may leave." "Why, yes, of course." The assistant, who had walked in bracing for death, left completely unscathed. That evening, to celebrate Bella's first victory, Henry set up a long table in the estate's back garden for a celebratory dinner. As he cut her steak, he asked, "Bella, how on earth did you convince Smith? He's not an easy man to deal with." Bella smiled mysteriously. "I told him I was confident I could make Sophie the #1 perfume brand in the country, and that I could show him my sincerity within a month." "What sincerity?" Bella put down her knife and fork and said slowly, "By bringing Nancy out of retirement." Those 5 words were enough to make Henry, who had just taken a sip of red wine, choke. He coughed and laughed. "Hiring yourself. Bella, you're really one of a kind, that's right." The internationally renowned perfumer Nancy, who had vanished 3 years ago, was in fact Bella herself. She had a remarkable talent for perfumery since childhood. But 3 years ago, to marry Ethan, Bella had not only given up her identity as the heiress of the White family, but also her identity as Nancy. Now, for the sake of her career, she had decided to pick it up again. She was going to take back everything she had lost, piece by piece. The Nancy identity will be a huge help to Sophie's development. I'll also choose the right moment to publicly reveal that Bella is Nancy. Henry strongly agreed with her plan. He then asked, "By the way, what about your last bottle of Love Actually? That perfume is highly sought after in the industry, worth a fortune. We could use it to create some buzz first." "It's not with me," Bella said, spearing a small piece of steak. Her tone was flat. "I gave it to Ethan." Leaving behind that bottle, her favorite perfume, was like leaving behind all her feelings and love. The person who walked away is the Bella of today. Chapter 6. But what Bella hadn't expected was that, even though she had no plans to use Love Actually to create buzz, the perfume would stir up a storm in the fashion world just a few days later. It all started when Vivian Sutton posted a selfie on her social media, and behind her, the bottle of Love Actually was visible. This was a collector's item, with only 3 bottles in the entire world. Even when Vivian was a popular supermodel abroad, she had never owned one. It was rumored that a top fashion magazine editor had failed to buy it even after offering millions 2 years ago. So when she saw the bottle in Ethan's room, she was so excited she nearly jumped. Then she remembered how, after her leg injury, junior models had snatched away many of her resources and her fame. She immediately realized this perfume could help her win back some attention. So she deliberately revealed the bottle in her selfie, and sure enough, sharp-eyed fans recognized it immediately. The editor-in-chief of that top magazine naturally noticed it too, and even contacted Vivian directly. Just as she was gaining massive attention, negative comments followed. "LOL, is Vivian Sutton showing off a fake perfume? It has to be a knockoff. There are only 3 bottles of Love Actually in the world. One was bought by a North American collector, one is with Hollywood superstar Angelina, and the last one is with Nancy herself. Where did Vivian get hers? She used to be a model, for crying out loud. Showing off fakes is a huge taboo in the fashion world. She's probably going to get blacklisted for this." In the top floor CEO's office of the White Group, Henry cheekily held his phone out to Bella. "Bella, this bottle Vivian is showing off must be the one you left behind. Tusk, it's the real deal, but all the netizens are attacking her for buying a fake." Bella glanced at the phone. It was indeed her bottle. So, Ethan had taken the perfume she left him and given it to Vivian. Even though she had decided to let go of the past, Bella's heart sank slightly. After all, it was her most prized creation. She said in a low voice, "It has nothing to do with me. Are you that free? What are you doing here anyway?" At her question, Henry finally remembered his real reason for coming. "I have a gift for you." He took out a USB drive and plugged it into Bella's computer. On it was a folder named Vivian Sutton. Henry gave a cool smile. "See for yourself, this Vivian is not as simple as she seems." Bella, not knowing what he was up to, clicked open the folder. What she saw left her stunned. It turned out that Vivian had returned from abroad not just because of a leg injury, but also because she had been fooling around with male supermodels. She had not only been a homewrecker, but had also taken all sorts of explicit photos. She had even gotten pregnant by a married man and had an abortion. After her agency found out, they used her leg injury as an excuse to kick her out and send her back to the country for good. The folder was filled with photos and videos of her messy private life with those models, and even the surgical report from her abortion. After looking through it, Bella couldn't help but frown, fighting back a wave of nausea. This was the woman Ethan had been hung up on for so many years. Was Vivian just that good at acting, or was Ethan blinded by love? Bella shook her head, not wanting to see any more of the filthy images, and closed the laptop. Henry could see she was in a bad mood and said quietly, "Is Ethan some kind of blind fool? He couldn't see you pouring your heart out for 3 years, and he can't see Vivian putting on a career woman act while sleeping around with men behind his back." Bella said slowly, "Perhaps his love for Vivian has reached a point where he doesn't care about these things." Chapter 7. All right, let's not talk about them anymore. In any case, whatever kind of person Vivian was, that was Ethan's choice and had nothing to do with her. She buried herself in her work again. the fake perfume scandal didn't trouble Vivian for long. Soon after, she posted another picture with the bottle's serial number, proving its authenticity. It was the exclusive number of the bottle that belonged to Nancy herself. Once that picture was out, the doubters were instantly silenced, left to marvel at how well-connected Vivian must be, even after returning to the country, to get her hands on Nancy's perfume. She cleverly used the opportunity to cozy up to the fashion magazine's editor-in-chief, offering to give her the perfume. The editor, who was obsessed with fragrances, naturally owed her a favor and gave Vivian a cover shoot for the magazine. This magazine's cover was notoriously difficult to get. Even award-winning actresses had to wait in line. Vivian, however, got the opportunity with ease and was immensely pleased with herself. It wasn't until later that Ethan found out about the deals she had made behind his back, and he was somewhat displeased. In the study, Vivian deliberately softened her voice, pleading with him, "Ethan, I just love my work so much. Look, my leg is almost healed, but I can't walk the runway for now, and it makes me so sad. Lisa really loves that perfume. I had no choice but to say I'd give it to her." Ethan's expression wasn't pleasant. It wasn't that he was reluctant to part with a bottle of perfume. It wasn't his to begin with, but Vivian's habit of acting on her own made him, a man used to being in control, uncomfortable. It was strange. Although he disliked Bella's weak personality, it seemed that after 3 years, he had grown accustomed to someone's gentle compliance. Seeing his displeasure, Vivian spoke softly again, "Ethan, I promise this is the only time." She was, after all, the woman he loved. Ethan sighed internally and ultimately chose to back down. "Fine. Just remember to discuss things with me before you do them next time." Vivian's face lit up with a smile, and she readily agreed. After she left, the study returned to its silence. As Ethan looked at the perfume bottle that was about to be given away, an image of Bella's face, always adorned with a faint smile, appeared irresistibly in his mind. Regardless of how she had obtained the bottle, since he was now giving away something she had left behind, shouldn't he at least tell her? After thinking for a long time, Ethan took out his phone and dialed Bella's number. As it rang, he wondered how was she doing now. She had left without taking a cent. She might even be struggling to survive. He frowned. This woman, usually so weak, was insisting on keeping up appearances at a time like this. Whatever. Seeing as the perfume she left had helped Vivian, he would give her another sum of money. On the other end, the phone rang a few times before Bella picked it up. The moment she saw the familiar number, a cold glint flashed in her eyes. "Ethan?" She didn't answer. Hearing the persistent ringing, she curled her lip into a cold smirk and decisively rejected the call. Then, she tapped the screen a few more times. Done. Ethan was stunned when the call was dropped. He thought that perhaps she didn't recognize the number since he had never called her before. With rare patience, he dialed again. But 5 seconds later, a mechanical voice came from the phone. Ethan's previously calm expression instantly turned ashen. She had actually blocked him. He laughed coldly in anger, tossing the phone onto the desk. The flicker of pity he had felt moments ago vanished without a trace. Chapter 8. A week later, Vivian officially appeared on the cover of the top-tier magazine. The famous photographer who shot the cover posted a few teaser photos on social media, and fans immediately showered her with praise. "My queen is so beautiful as expected of an international supermodel, so much charisma." Vivian Sutton is on another level. She gets a top magazine cover right after coming back from abroad. A top model indeed. A little birdie told me her fiancé is a major CEO who supposedly waited for her for 3 years. So happy for her, what a perfect life. Just like that, Vivian's popularity in the country skyrocketed, almost surpassing the fame she had abroad. Meanwhile, Bella, oblivious to the outside world, was engrossed in creating a new perfume. In the studio, Bella was mixing scents when Henry walked in with his phone, a troubled look on his face. "What's wrong?" Bella asked, her eyes fixed on the liquid in her hand. Henry showed her the phone. "Bella, your last bottle of love actually was given away by Vivian Sutton." Bella's movements paused. She looked at the phone screen, at a photo shared on a social media platform by a magazine editor. It was her perfume bottle. Henry said angrily, "She must have traded your thing to get all those fashion resources." Bella didn't speak, but her hand slowly tightened. Her most prized work had not only been paraded around by Vivian, but had also become a gift to curry favor with others. And all of this must have happened with Ethan's tacit approval. She stared at the photo for a long time before finally looking away. "No matter how precious love actually is," she said coolly, "it's already in the past. Since she had decided to say goodbye to the past, why should she care who they gave the perfume to? Henry, trust me, my next creation will be even more stunning." She held a small bottle in her hand, filled with a pale green liquid. "With this, Sophie will definitely be a massive hit." Bella wasn't wrong. After the perfume was produced and released on a small scale, it immediately received rave reviews. At the same time, the White Group announced its collaboration with Nancy. With Nancy's return and the launch of the new fragrance, Sophie's profile soared. Bella was busy with her career and had no time for others, but it seemed those two wouldn't leave her alone. In recent days, rumors of Ethan and Vivian's engagement began to circulate. It was Vivian herself who couldn't help but show off during an interview. While announcing the engagement, she also took a swipe at Bella. A reporter asked, "We heard that the president of Montgomery Corp. had a previous wife and they divorced after you returned. Was the divorce related to you?" Vivian was utterly dismissive of Bella. "I am Ethan's first love, and we grew up together. There's no question of me being a homewrecker. We have always been in love. As for Ethan's ex-wife, she's actually a pitiful person. She's from the countryside, very poor, so she clung to him and refused to leave. But after Ethan gave her a sum of money, she agreed to the divorce." In just a few sentences, she had branded Bella in the media as a gold digger who only cared about money. The interview went viral online, and her fans cheered her on. Isn't this the CEO's one true love? So happy for them, so the ex-wife was just a gold digger. How can a woman like that compare to our supermodel? Getting engaged so quickly, the CEO must truly love Vivian. Chapter 9, when Bella learned about their engagement and saw the interview, her eyes were so cold they could have been forged from ice. The difference between being loved and not being loved was like night and day. When she and Ethan got together, there was no engagement ceremony, not even a wedding. They just got their license, he took her to the family mansion for a meal, and that was it, they were married. Now, for his engagement to Vivian, he truly didn't want to shortchange her in the slightest. But that wasn't what Bella cared about. She no longer cared about Ethan's preferential treatment. What she cared about were the blatant lies Vivian had told. Not a homewrecker. Just because she was his first love, it meant there was no affair. Bella closed her eyes, suppressing the rage within her. Perhaps she really shouldn't just let this go. Meanwhile, at the Montgomery villa, Vivian and Ethan were planning the engagement ceremony. She wanted the most exquisite gown, the most magnificent ring. Then, she thought of the perfume for the day. Vivian remembered that Nancy's new fragrance, Addiction, was very popular, but she felt it was too common since so many people had bought it. She considered herself a person of unique taste and didn't want to use the same perfume as so many others. So she wrapped her arms around Ethan and purred, "Ethan, for the engagement, I want a perfume personally created for me by Nancy." Ethan raised an eyebrow. Nancy, since she had joined the White Group, her relationship with Montgomery Corp was delicate. But this was an engagement, not a business collaboration, so it was worth a try. "All right, I'll contact her for you." Vivian smiled with satisfaction. She knew it. She would always be the one Ethan loved most. No matter what she asked for, he would grant it. Before long, his assistant found Nancy's private email and sent the address to Ethan. He composed a message. "Meng, hello, Nancy. I am Ethan Montgomery, president of the Montgomery Corporation. My fiancé and I are about to hold our engagement ceremony, and we hope you can create a custom perfume for us. Name your price, it would be greatly appreciated." That was him. Even when asking for a favor, his tone was always so arrogant. Bella received the email shortly after. Henry happened to be right there, discussing work with her. She opened it, and Henry was the first to laugh. "If he knew you were Nancy, he would never have sent this email." Bella stared at it coldly, about to refuse outright when an idea struck her. A cold smile touched her lips as she typed out a reply. "Nancy, it would be my honor. However, it takes me at least 10 days to create a perfume, so I may not be able to have it ready before your engagement." Watching her type and send the message, Henry's amused expression turned to one of confusion. Are you really going to help them? Bella smiled but said nothing. Soon, another message from Ethan arrived. Meng, no matter. The engagement is exactly 10 days from now. As long as the perfume arrives before the evening banquet, it will be fine. Bella replied swiftly. Nancy. Of course, I wish you a happy engagement. After sending it, she stared at the words happy engagement, her almond eyes radiating a light as cold as ice. Since you walked into this trap yourselves, don't blame me for being merciless. Henry patted her shoulder. Bella, are you crazy? You're really going to give Vivian a perfect engagement ceremony? Bella shook her head with a faint smile. No, I'm going to give her an engagement ceremony she'll never want to remember. Henry's eyes widened in realization. You're planning to deliver it to them yourself? Bella slowly nodded. Since the two of them valued this engagement ceremony so much, then as Ethan's ex-wife, she should naturally go and offer her blessings to the happy couple. Chapter 10. After learning that Nancy had agreed to create a custom perfume for her, Vivian was even more delighted. It was true. She was a natural-born winner. Not only did she have a brilliant career and a fiancé who adored her, but she was also about to have the most perfect engagement ceremony. After arranging everything, Ethan was looking over the guest list when he remembered something. He called the person in charge of sending out invitations. Remember to send an invitation to the White family as well. Invite the White family's daughter to attend. Yes, Mr. Montgomery. Ever since the new Miss White had taken charge, the competition between the White Group and Montgomery Corp had intensified. First, she snatched the SJ partnership, then she brought Nancy out of retirement. Ethan was very curious about this mysterious heiress of the White family, but had never had the chance to meet her. The engagement ceremony would be a good opportunity. 10 days later, the engagement was held at the Felton Grand Hotel. It was clear how much Ethan valued Vivian. Even for just an engagement, he had invited nearly half of Jingbei's elite families and socialites. He had given Vivian all the prestige she could want. Inside the lavish and exquisite banquet hall, Vivian wore a flowing gold gown, her face beaming with happiness. She was the center of the entire event, constantly surrounded by people offering flattery and compliments. The words were music to Vivian's ears, and she clung even more tightly to Ethan's arm. She felt as if she were floating on a cloud, light on her feet, a smile she couldn't hide gracing her lips. But this blissful mood shattered the moment she saw two blonde, blue-eyed foreign women walk in from outside. What were they doing here? These two women were colleagues from Vivian's time abroad and were among the victims of her home-wrecking. Vivian stood frozen in place, tense. Ethan sensed her unease and asked in a low voice, "What's wrong?" Before she could answer, the two foreign women walked over, their faces cold. One of them spoke decent Mandarin. She stared daggers at Vivian and spat, "You bitch! You wrecked my relationship with my boyfriend, and now you think you can have a happy marriage?" The surroundings instantly fell silent. Ethan's face darkened at her words, but he clearly didn't believe her. "Who are you? How dare you come here and cause a scene, and spread such rumors? Your fiancé knows best whether I'm spreading rumors. When she was in France, she slept with countless men's boyfriends, got pregnant, and had an abortion. The company fired her because her morals were just too corrupt." Vivian immediately tightened her grip on Ethan's arm. "That's not true, Ethan, they're framing me, let me explain." Whispers rippled through the crowd, but Ethan still didn't believe it. After all, they had no proof. "Security, get these crazy women out of here." But in the next second, the large screen in the banquet hall, which had been playing a romantic video, suddenly went black. Then, a series of shocking, explicit images flashed across the screen for all to see. And the face in those videos was unmistakably Vivian's. The entire hall gasped in shock. Ethan's face turned ashen when he saw it. Vivian, as if she had gone mad, lunged at the two foreign women. "No, that's not real. Who sent you? Who sent you to frame me?" Bang! Just as the women began to scuffle, the main doors of the banquet hall suddenly swung open. Bella walked in, dressed in a sophisticated and elegant white gown, holding the very bottle of love that had appeared online several times. Chapter 11. The tightly shut doors of the banquet hall burst open, drawing everyone's attention. Not many people present knew Bella. Although she was the heiress of the wealthy White family, she had never been fond of attending such events. Furthermore, before marrying Ethan, Bella had been studying abroad, giving her even fewer opportunities to attend these galas and meet people in their circle. So among the guests, no one recognized Bella. But while these high society figures might not know Bella, there was no one who didn't recognize the bottle of love actually in her hand. It was one of the signature creations of the famous perfumer Nancy, with only 3 bottles in the entire world. But those 3 bottles already had owners, so why did Bella have one? Speaking of the perfumer Nancy, she had recently become quite the sensation in Jingbei's elite circles. 3 years ago, Nancy had taken the world by storm with Love Actually. Though there were only 3 bottles globally, Nancy had thoughtfully produced numerous scent cards carrying the fragrance. Being able to smell it but not buy it was a brilliant marketing tactic that left many admirers of the perfume desperate, and Nancy's own value skyrocketed as a result. Nancy and her globally limited Love Actually were almost deified. The 2 auction bottles of Love Actually were snapped up by a North American collector and the Hollywood superstar Angelina, respectively, for 7-figure sums. But no one could have predicted that Nancy, at the peak of her fame, would choose to retreat from the public eye, a disappearance that lasted 3 years. It wasn't until recently that Nancy announced a long-term collaboration with the White Group to create their new perfume brand, Sophie. After joining the White Group, Nancy returned after 3 years with another masterpiece addiction. This time, the perfume was produced on a custom line by the White Group, so it was no longer limited to just 3 bottles worldwide. Addiction, as Sophie's high-end offering, was released in limited quantities, only 99 bottles per month, but each one was personally blended by Nancy. For the wealthy wives and daughters of high society, limited edition just meant paying a higher price. The more limited it was, the more they scrambled to get it. So now, as Bella entered holding a bottle of Love Actually that these socialites coveted, she instantly captured the entire room's attention. The rare perfume served as an identity card for this unknown woman, proclaiming her immense wealth and status. Ethan, who had been standing by Vivian's side, looked over when the doors opened. He never expected the person arriving to be his ex-wife, Bella, who had been gone for months. Bella was wearing a sleek, form-fitting white gown with a high waist that accentuated her flawless proportions. She wasn't revealing anything, yet every step she took exuded an alluring charm. Was this really his formerly submissive ex-wife? Ethan stared, momentarily stunned. With a smile on her lips, Bella carried Love Actually and walked calmly up to Ethan. Then, with a perfect smile, she said, "Mr. Montgomery, long time no see. Congratulations on your new marriage." Chapter 12. Hearing Bella's voice, Ethan snapped out of his daze and frowned. He asked, "Bella, what are you doing here? Where have you been all this time? Why did you block my number?" Ethan himself didn't realize that his rapid-fire questions were far more agitated than his reaction to seeing Vivian's scandals just moments before. Bella let out a disdainful laugh, as if she had heard the world's greatest joke. But before she could speak, Vivian, who had been wrestling with the 2 French supermodels, finally stopped. Vivian was currently pinned to the ground by the 2 tall, long-limbed French women. Her perfectly coiffed hair was a mess from the scuffle, and her exquisite makeup was smudged, making her look utterly ferocious. But upon seeing Bella, she lost control and screamed, "Bella, what is a bitch like you doing here?" Bella looked down at the disheveled Vivian and, without a word, simply curved her lips into a smile. Seeing her nemesis, Vivian suddenly found a burst of strength and broke free from the 2 French women's grasp. She scrambled to her feet and rushed to Bella. "I knew it. You hired these 2 women, didn't you? And those photos, that was all you're doing, wasn't it? You must have conspired together to ruin me." Before Bella could respond, one of the French women spoke up again. "Vivian, can you stop acting? Everyone at the company knows about your dirty laundry." The other French woman, who had been silent, stepped forward, looked at Ethan, and said, "Sir, I don't know what you see in Vivian, but please believe me, she is not a good person. She's only after your money." Vivian rushed to Ethan's side, clinging to his arm in a last-ditch effort. "Ethan, you believe me, don't you? None of that is true. It's Bella and them ganging up on me. They're jealous of me." Ethan frowned, looking down at the wretched woman. Her lipstick was smeared across her face, her mascara was a runny mess. She was a truly unsightly sight. Ethan looked at this face, the face he had yearned for so many years, and couldn't help but think back to their first love. They say a man never forgets his first love, and the proud Ethan Montgomery was no exception. Otherwise, he wouldn't have rushed into a flash marriage with another woman right after breaking up with Vivian. But now, looking at this face, he could no longer find that feeling of first love. Vivian had changed. She had become a person with no bottom line, willing to destroy others' relationships for money. The words social climber were practically written on her face, and he had changed too. After being cared for by the gentle and considerate Bella for 3 years, he could no longer tolerate Vivian's self-serving nature and her willingness to do anything to get what she wanted. When he had loved her, he saw it as her personality, her charm. He had genuinely wanted to build a family with her. But now, Ethan finally saw Vivian's true colors. From behind Vivian came the French supermodel's sneer. Vivian stopped pretending. Mr. Montgomery, perhaps you don't know, but the reason Vivian fell on the runway in Milan was because she was pushed by someone who was retaliating against her for interfering in their relationship. Why else would she just fall off a runway for no reason? Everyone in our company knows about this. If you don't believe it, you can ask anyone. Chapter 13, that sentence was the last straw. When Ethan received Vivian's call after 3 years, his heart had been stirred. Otherwise, he wouldn't have immediately sent someone to bring her back to the country after she tearfully described her injury. The moment Vivian saw Ethan, she began to cry about how difficult her last 3 years in France had been. She claimed she was too dedicated, that she had overworked herself and accidentally fallen from the runway, but that the supermodel world would no longer accept a runway model with a leg injury. At the time, Ethan had gently comforted her, saying, "Vivian, it's okay. Stay by my side. I can support you for the rest of your life." Hearing this, Vivian's eyes lit up, but she quickly feigned distress. "Ethan, I want to be with you forever too, but you're a married man. How can I interfere in your marriage?" Thinking of the bland and uninteresting Bella, Ethan's voice immediately hardened. "Don't worry, I'll divorce her right away. I'll marry you and bring you home properly." Now that Ethan had fulfilled his promise, he realized just how ridiculous he had been. He had abandoned his devoted wife of 3 years for a two-faced woman. Ignoring Vivian's pleading eyes, Ethan coldly shook off her hand. The words that came from his thin lips were sharper than any sword. "Vivian, you're quite the actress. To think you had me fooled for so many years." Seeing that Ethan didn't believe her, Vivian completely lost her mind. If Ethan didn't believe her, it meant that everything she now had would vanish. A brilliant career, a devoted fiancé, the most perfect engagement ceremony, she was about to lose it all. Vivian knelt beside Ethan, screaming hysterically, "Why, Ethan, why don't you believe me? You said you would love me forever. Why did you change your mind? Is it because of this woman?" Vivian pointed at Bella, her voice filled with resentment. "Bella, this is my and Ethan's engagement party. What right do you have to be here?" "Get out," Bella, far from being angry, laughed. "Vivian, do you think I actually want to see you?" She held up the invitation in her hand and continued, "The only reason I'm here is because I was asked to be." As she finished speaking, Vivian snatched the invitation from Bella's hand. "Impossible. You're just a poor, parentless woman. What right do you have to receive an invitation from the Montgomery Corporation?" But when Vivian opened it, she froze in place. "You, how could you be Nancy?" The guests, who had been quietly watching the drama unfold, erupted into a collective gasp at Vivian's words. Nancy? The famous perfumer Nancy? Nancy was world-renowned, but no one had ever seen her face. To think she would appear here today. People were already starting to crowd around, wanting to talk to Nancy, surprised that she was such a young woman. Even Ethan showed a look of astonishment. Bella was Nancy. No wonder Bella had left behind the priceless love actually before their divorce. At the time, Ethan had become suspicious of Bella's identity, but his investigation had turned up nothing. Now, knowing that Bella was Nancy made sense. It also explained why Bella had no interest in his money. So, Nancy's retreat from the spotlight 3 years ago, at the height of her fame, was because she had married him? Chapter 14, the truth hit Ethan with a sharp pang of pain. If he had known that Bella was the famous perfumer Nancy, perhaps he wouldn't have divorced her. The reason Ethan had divorced Bella was simply that he disliked her constant fawning over him, her soft and easily bullied demeanor, which held no attraction for him. But before Ethan could process this further, Bella spoke. Yes, I am the perfumer Nancy. Weren't you hoping to receive a perfume personally blended by me for your engagement? So, I've brought my perfume with me. I thought long and hard, but couldn't create a fragrance I was satisfied with. However, I've seen how you and my love actually have been trending together so often lately, Miss Sutton. It seems you truly adore it. So, I blended another bottle and brought it here personally as a gift for you and Mr. Montgomery. I read about your love story in the news, and I was deeply moved. Coincidentally, the name Love actually translates to love above all. I thought bringing this perfume to you and Mr. Montgomery would be just perfect. It's just a pity that, looking at the current situation, it seems Miss Sutton won't be needing this perfume after all. Bella's words hit Vivian where it hurt. Unable to bear it any longer, she lunged forward in a fit of emotion, but Bella sidestepped her with ease. Ethan's gaze on Bella was complicated, his expression hesitant, as if he had much to say. Bella, however, walked straight past him and strode confidently toward the banquet hall stage. After Bella took the stage, the explicit photos on the large screen finally stopped playing. But it was too late. The photos had already exploded across the headlines of every major news outlet. Bella tapped the microphone, and once again, all eyes in the room focused on her. She offered a graceful smile and said slowly, "Hello, everyone. I am the perfumer Nancy." The engagement party of Montgomery Corporation's President Ethan and international supermodel Vivian had already generated massive publicity. Ethan had intended to make the news big to boost his company's profile, so several media outlets were present. What Ethan didn't know yet was that the news of Vivian's chaotic private life had already been sent out by these reporters. And now that Bella had just revealed her identity as Nancy in front of all the guests, the hashtag famous international perfumer Nancy reveals her face quickly shot to the top of the trending topics. As Bella stood on stage, the media below had secretly started live streaming, all eager to get the scoop. Ethan stared intently at the woman on stage, who looked stunningly beautiful even under the glare of the spotlights. Bella seemed completely different from before. She was no longer the submissive woman who cowered before him. Bella had transformed into someone else entirely. Her aura was now incredibly elegant, captivating anyone who looked at her. But Bella's next words would leave Ethan even more astounded. Through the microphone, Bella's voice reached every guest in the room. "Nancy is my professional name. My real name is Bella White, and I am also the newly appointed Chief Executive Officer of the White Group." Chapter 15, a wave of shock rippled through the audience. The CEO of the White Group? Wasn't that the sole heiress of the richest family in Jingbei, the White family? The White family's daughter was the internationally renowned perfumer Nancy. So, Nancy's collaboration with the White Group was, in essence, the White heiress collaborating with herself. Hearing this news, Ethan's eyes widened in disbelief. Bella was also the White family's daughter. His poor, meek ex-wife was the sole daughter of the richest family in Jingbei. That meant the mysterious Miss White, who had snatched the SJ deal from Montgomery Corp and brought Nancy out of retirement, was none other than his ex-wife, Bella. No one in the room could have been more shocked than Ethan. He had assumed Bella was just a penniless, powerless orphan. Even with the identity of the perfumer Nancy, she wasn't truly in the upper echelons. After all, there was a fundamental difference between being rich and being powerful. But now, Bella had transformed into the sole daughter of the richest family, the CEO of the White Group. The White family and the White Group were entities that even the Montgomery Corporation had to look up to. How could Ethan possibly accept this reality? Bella's short sentence contained a massive amount of information, but no one present could have imagined that this was just the beginning. On stage, Bella caught a glimpse of Ethan's stunned expression, and a satisfied smile touched her lips. Her words continued, "Today, as the White family's daughter and as the perfumer Nancy, I received separate invitations from the president of the Montgomery Corporation. But in truth, the relationship between Mr. Montgomery and myself is far more complex than that. I've recently heard some rumors that have misrepresented my identity, so I would like to clarify those matters here today. Because I am the pitiful woman Miss Sutton spoke of before, the one from the countryside, who clung to Mr. Montgomery, refused to divorce him, and then left quickly after taking his money." Bella stood on the stage, taking in the spectacular array of expressions on the faces below. The reason she chose to appear here today and say these things was to bring utter ruin upon Ethan, and Vivian Bella knew that, with Ethan's shrewdness, he would have made this engagement party a grand affair. But she hadn't expected him to invite major media outlets and half of Jingbei's elite circle for Vivian's sake. A pang of pain shot through her heart, but then she thought, didn't this play right into her hands? The more magnificent Ethan's engagement party was, the greater the impact of her ruining it would be. It all fell into place so effortlessly. Ethan probably never imagined he would one day be the architect of his own downfall. Although Bella's words were self-deprecating, everyone present could instantly tell who was right and who was wrong. Vivian had previously insinuated in interviews that Ethan's ex-wife was an unscrupulous gold digger. But now that Bella had appeared, Vivian's lies crumbled instantly. After all, as the sole daughter of the richest man, the one thing Bella did not lack was money. Why would she divorce Ethan for money? Chapter 16, however, no one in Jingbei's top circles knew about Bella and Ethan's past, so some in the audience inevitably grew suspicious. Miss White, words alone are not proof. How do we know if what you're saying is true? No one here knew about your marriage to Mr. Montgomery. Bella smiled, as if she had expected this question. She pulled out a piece of paper. It was her divorce agreement with Ethan. The engagement party had its own event photographers. When Bella held up the agreement, a cameraman immediately zoomed in, projecting a close-up of the document onto the large screen, clearly enjoying the drama. Everyone present saw the names on the agreement. Husband, Ethan Montgomery. Wife, Bella White. The agreement stated an immediate divorce, with the wife leaving with no assets. It was all there in black and white, with their flamboyant signatures at the bottom. Bella had indeed left the marriage with nothing, taking not a single cent from Ethan. Vivian's previous claims were complete nonsense. In truth, the only reason Vivian had dared to slander Bella in the media was that she believed no one knew Bella, so she tried to belittle Ethan's ex to highlight her own superiority as the current partner. If people had known the ex-wife Vivian was talking about was the White family's heiress, public opinion would have taken a completely different turn. As for why no one knew about my marriage to Mr. Montgomery, it's because I married him 3 years ago under a hidden identity. It wasn't just you who didn't know. Even Mr. Montgomery was unaware of my true background. Besides, we had no engagement ceremony, not even a wedding. We just got our marriage license and had a meal at the Montgomery family mansion. That was it. As for our divorce, while it was always bound to happen sooner or later, I really have to thank Miss Sutton for speeding up the process. Although Bella spoke with a smile, everyone could hear the underlying message. Ethan had not treated her well after their marriage. Bella's words were clever, gentle, and without a hint of aggression, but everyone understood her meaning. The reason Ethan had divorced Bella so quickly was not because Bella had taken his money, as Vivian had claimed, but because of Vivian's interference, which had destroyed Bella and Ethan's marriage. Vivian had even claimed to the media that she and Ethan had been in love for years and that she had not interfered in his marriage. She had implied that Bella was the third party in her relationship with Ethan. But now the truth was out. Vivian herself was the one who had interfered in someone else's relationship, and it turned out she was a serial homewrecker. Many of the guests present today were wealthy matriarchs from prominent families. These women, who had been born into privilege and wealth, despised women who interfered in others' marriages and relationships. Almost without thinking, they sided with Bella, their expressions toward Vivian filled with disgust. This kind of woman, who couldn't make it on her own merits, could only resort to cheap tricks to try and get things that didn't belong to her. Their disdainful gazes also turned toward Ethan. Chapter 17, he had been so dismissive when marrying Bella, yet for a mere supermodel, Ethan had thrown such a lavish affair. It must have been because he thought Bella was a poor, powerless woman at the time. The guests in the hall whispered amongst themselves. Although Ethan couldn't hear a single word, he felt as if fingers were pointing at his back, condemning him. It wasn't just others. Ethan himself couldn't help but despise his own actions. Yes, he had given Vivian such a grand engagement party, but how had he treated Bella 3 years ago? 3 years ago, he had arrogantly dismissed Bella as a sparrow trying to become a phoenix, thinking that a poor woman like her was only interested in marrying into wealth. He had never once looked at her properly. Yet, despite how he had treated her, Bella had never complained and had been nothing but good to him for 3 years straight. Ethan asked himself honestly. In those 3 years, Bella's devotion to him had been flawless. She had been a perfect wife. If it had been Vivian, she wouldn't have been able to do even a tenth of what Bella had done for him. Ethan suddenly felt a pang of regret. Why had he abandoned his devoted wife for a two-faced woman? As Ethan was lost in thought, Vivian suddenly went berserk and tried to rush the stage, only to be restrained by the White family's bodyguards. But her hysterical screams were not stopped. "Bella, why? You already have the status of the White family's daughter. Why did you have to come and ruin my engagement party? You're just jealous, aren't you? You're jealous that I have Ethan's love." The onlooker's expressions toward Vivian had shifted from disdain to pity. Her disheveled and crazed state truly resembled that of a patient escaped from a psychiatric hospital. Hearing Vivian's words, the smile on Bella's face turned cold. She walked down from the stage and approached Vivian, her expression surprisingly calm as she looked at Vivian's resentful face. "Vivian, I'm not doing this because I'm jealous of you. This outcome is what you deserve. If you hadn't played the victim and slandered me in the media, I might not have gotten involved. Ethan's affairs are no longer my concern. I'd be happy to see you two ruin each other. But since you went around twisting the truth and tarnishing my reputation, you should have expected this day would come. And you took the love I left behind and used it to trade for resources without my permission. That was my property. Miss Sutton, you've been stepping on my head to show off for quite some time now. You must have been very proud, weren't you? But what isn't yours will never be yours. As for Ethan's love, it seems you're about to lose that too." If looks could kill, Bella would have been riddled with holes from Vivian's hatred. "Bella, how did you go from being a poor wretch to the White family's daughter? You say you're the heiress, and you just are? Who can prove it? No one here even knows you." Hearing Vivian's words, Bella almost laughed in exasperation. "Do I need to prove my identity to you? Who do you think you are? Should I bring my dad here for a paternity test?" Chapter 18. Vivian, however, let out a loud laugh and shouted, "Everyone, don't be fooled by this woman. She's not the White family's daughter at all. Otherwise, how could none of you recognize her? Though Vivian was morally corrupt, she had a point. Indeed, from the beginning, it had been Bella's one-woman show. She claimed to be the famous perfumer Nancy, the White family's daughter, and Ethan's ex-wife. But of all these claims, only her status as Ethan's ex-wife had been confirmed. Although her surname was White, no one present knew the real name of the White family's daughter. They only knew that the Richest family in Jingbei had a sole daughter who was often abroad, so no one here had ever seen her. Vivian was right. Since no one had ever seen the White family's daughter, how could they prove that the woman before them was the real one? So someone in the crowd, clearly looking for more drama, shouted, "Mr. Montgomery, say something. Is your ex-wife really the White family's daughter and the famous perfumer Nancy? Could this woman be a fraud?" All eyes turned to Ethan. He frowned and said, "She is indeed the perfumer Nancy." Ethan had no doubt that Bella was the perfumer Nancy. After all, he had personally communicated with Nancy via a private email to commission a perfume for Vivian. Only he, Vivian, and Nancy herself knew about it. Furthermore, Bella was holding the engagement party invitation addressed to Nancy. But as for whether Bella was the White family's daughter, Ethan couldn't be sure. Although he had crossed swords with the White family's daughter multiple times, he had never once met her face to face in her capacity as the CEO of the White Group. The guests present were all experts at reading people. Hearing Ethan's words, they understood his unspoken meaning. He knew Bella was Nancy, but he didn't know if she was truly the White family's daughter. So all eyes returned to Bella. Finding herself the center of suspicion, Bella found it somewhat amusing. She had lived a low-key life for so long, she never thought she'd have to prove who she was. But how could one prove such a thing? Could she really bring her father here for a paternity test? Seeing the tide turning in the room, Vivian said smugly, "Well, Bella, even Ethan can't vouch for your identity. Who else can? Don't tell me you don't have a single person to prove it for you. Even if you were the real White family's daughter, that would be pretty pathetic, ha ha ha." Just then, the banquet hall doors opened once again. A dashingly handsome man with a devil-may-care attitude walked in, his voice ringing out, "Who says no one can prove it? I can." All eyes were drawn to the newcomer. A closer look revealed it was none other than Henry Lancaster, the young master of the Lancaster family. Chapter 19, the Lancaster family's status in Jingbei was on par with the White family's. While no one in the room knew the White family's daughter, this young Lancaster was famous, and everyone present recognized him. Henry Lancaster loved to go out and was very well connected in Jingbei's elite circles. He was handsome, generous, and naturally, his reputation preceded him. But Henry was by no means just a playboy who only knew how to eat, drink, and have fun. As the youngest son of the Lancaster family, he had an older brother and an older sister. As the most doted-on child, he was supposed to just be happy and healthy, but he had volunteered to train at the Lancaster group. Perhaps it was because he had someone in his heart he wanted to protect. I can vouch for Bella. She is the White family's daughter. Does anyone else have anything to say? Henry, with a playful smile on his face, walked to the center of the banquet hall. Everyone in the room knew Henry, and they certainly knew that the Lancaster and White families had always been close. Since Henry had come forward to vouch for Bella, she must be the real deal. Henry smiled as he slowly swept his gaze over the faces of all the guests. He said nothing, but everyone who met his gaze felt a chill run down their spine. His eyes finally settled on Vivian. He looked at her with a hint of disgust, then turned to Ethan and said, "Mr. Montgomery, your taste isn't all that great, is it? I thought you looked down on our Bella because you were captivated by some stunning beauty. But it turns out, it's just this." Perhaps because the mockery in Henry's tone was so blatant, several people in the audience couldn't help but chuckle. Even Bella couldn't resist a smile. Her old friend's tongue was as sharp as ever. Ethan frowned at Henry's words, but said nothing. It wasn't that Ethan couldn't detect the ridicule in Henry's tone, but he had never been one for witty banter or verbal sparring. Though Henry's words were harsh, Ethan had to admit he had been wrong in the matter of Vivian and Bella. Since he had made a mistake, he wasn't afraid of being talked about. A real man had to take responsibility for his actions. Seeing no reaction from Ethan, Henry scoffed, silently cursing him for being a coward. But he quickly continued, "Since Mr. Montgomery's fiancé is morally corrupt, speaks recklessly, and has repeatedly destroyed others' relationships, shouldn't she give everyone an explanation?" Hearing Henry's words, someone quickly chimed in, "Yes, Mr. Montgomery, we all came to your engagement party. We've given our gifts. What's the meaning of showing us this drama?" In Jingbei, the Montgomery family could at best be considered a second-tier family, barely qualifying as wealthy. And the only reason the Montgomery family had made it to the second tier was because Ethan had built up the Montgomery Corporation over the past 5 years. But the meager profits of the Montgomery Corporation were rather insignificant compared to the White and Lancaster families behind Bella and Henry. People in high society who had reached this level were experts at reading the room and siding with the powerful. Seeing Bella and Henry standing against Ethan, they chose their side almost without a second thought. Who would oppose the White and Lancaster families for the sake of the insignificant Montgomery family? That would be suicidal. Besides, Ethan was clearly in the wrong in this matter. Chapter 20, Ethan finally spoke. "My apologies, everyone. I was completely unaware of what transpired today. I will return all of your gifts in full, so please do not worry. I apologize for wasting your time today. I will have someone escort you all home shortly." The guests present today were all prominent figures. They didn't care about the gifts, nor did they need Ethan's escort, as they all had their own luxury cars and drivers. They just wanted a reasonable explanation. "So what about your fiancé, Mr. Montgomery? For someone so morally corrupt, you really chose poorly, divorcing Miss White for a person like her." Ethan paused, then said, "I was also unaware of Vivian Sutton's misdeeds. Now that I know, I will absolutely not allow her to marry into my family. From this day forward, Vivian Sutton has no connection to me or the Montgomery Corporation." With that speech, Ethan managed to absolve himself of all blame. Bella frowned, about to retort, but someone was faster. Henry's voice rang out. "So, Mr. Montgomery's point is that he's a victim too? You've said all the right things and managed to distance yourself from the whole mess. Even if what you say is true, that you knew nothing about Vivian's past abroad, could you really have been unaware of her slandering Bella in the media?" You knew perfectly well that Bella took nothing from you when you divorced, yet you allowed Vivian to portray her as a gold digger to the press. Yes, Vivian didn't name names, and no one knew who your ex-wife was. But have you ever thought about the day the truth came out? The damage those ridiculous lies would do to a woman's reputation. Do you have any idea how much harm public opinion can cause a person? I imagine, Mr. Montgomery, that you weren't unaware of the potential consequences. You just didn't care, because from beginning to end, the only person you've ever cared about is yourself. Henry's voice wasn't loud, but filled with anger. It reached every ear in the silent banquet hall. This time, Henry was genuinely furious. Looking at this well-dressed, composed man, he wanted nothing more than to punch him. Letting two women pay the price for his absurd actions, what kind of man was Ethan Montgomery? Henry's words made all the guests pause. It was true. They had subconsciously blamed Vivian alone, but in reality, Ethan himself bore an undeniable responsibility. Bella was also stunned. She had grown up with Henry, known him for over 20 years, and this was the first time she had ever seen him so angry. Chapter 21, even 3 years ago, when Bella had insisted on hiding her identity to marry Ethan, Henry had only sighed and said, "Bella, if you want to go, then go. If you're wronged or you come to your senses, call me anytime. I'll be there to bring you home in a heartbeat." But at that time, Bella was lost in her one-sided love story and couldn't hear Henry's warning. "I know, Henry. Can't you wish me well for once?" But as things stood today, the truth showed Bella that Henry's reluctance for her to marry into the Montgomery family alone was because he was wishing her well. Because Ethan didn't love her, and the Montgomery home would only be a lion's den for her. Henry's words hit Ethan's sore spot. While he didn't care much for gossip, he was still a man who valued his pride. So, Ethan's tone also turned cold. "Then what would you have me do, young Master Lancaster?" Henry's older brother, Henry Lancaster SR, was the current CEO of the Lancaster Group, so to distinguish the two brothers, people usually called the elder Mr. Lancaster and the younger young Master Lancaster. Henry looked at Vivian, who was being held by the White family's bodyguards. She was now crying one moment and laughing the next, her mental state clearly unstable. So Henry smiled and said, "As I see it, Miss Sutton seems to be a bit mentally unstable. I happen to know a very reputable doctor at a psychiatric hospital. I think sending Miss Sutton there for treatment would be for the best." Ethan pursed his lips but said nothing. Henry took his silence as consent. So Henry waved his hand, and two strong Lancaster family bodyguards immediately appeared behind him. "Help Mr. Montgomery escort Miss Sutton to the psychiatric hospital. Make sure she gets proper treatment." "Yes, young Master Lancaster." Upon receiving Henry's order, the bodyguards immediately walked over to Vivian, took her by the arms, and started leading her out of the banquet hall. It was only then that Vivian finally understood what was happening and began to struggle. "Let go of me, where are you taking me? I'm the future lady of the Montgomery Corporation. How dare you treat me like this?" "Ethan, save me!" Vivian's screams gradually faded as she was taken away, and the banquet hall returned to silence. Henry curled his lips into a smile, seemingly unwilling to linger. "Since the story has reached its grand finale, I'll be taking my leave. I won't trouble Mr. Montgomery's people to see me out." As he was about to step away, Henry looked at Bella and smiled. "Let's go, my lady. Surely you're not waiting for Mr. Montgomery's people to escort you. Would I have the honor of personally seeing you out?" Events had unfolded too quickly for Bella to react. Hearing Henry's words, she walked over and playfully punched his arm. "Stop being a smartass. Let's go." Chapter 22, they hadn't gone far before a woman dressed as a wealthy socialite stopped Bella. "Miss White, hello. I was wondering if you would be willing to sell me this bottle of Love Actually. As long as you're willing to sell it, price is not an issue. I truly love this perfume, but I wasn't able to attend the previous auction." Bella looked at the newly blended Love Actually in her hand, then at the woman before her. "Miss Howard, since you like it so much, please accept this bottle as a gift." The woman, addressed as Miss Howard, waved her hands in refusal upon hearing Bella's offer. "Miss White, I couldn't possibly. This perfume is priceless. I can't just take it for free." Bella smiled and placed the bottle of Love Actually in Serena Howard's hand. "It's not the perfume itself that's valuable, but the affection of those who desire it. And how can one put a price on love? Besides, Love Actually is just from my private collection and was never sold on the market. So, Miss Howard, you are more than worthy of this gift. With Bella putting it that way, Serena had no choice but to accept the Love Actually, but she still insisted. Then I shall owe you a favor, Miss White. If there is anything I can help you with in the future, please don't hesitate to ask. I will do anything within my power to assist you. Bella's smile deepened. As it happens, there is something I'd like to ask for your help with. Hearing that Bella had a request, Serena nodded. Oh, what is it, Miss White? Please tell me. You've probably heard of Sophie, the new perfume brand recently launched by our White group. Serena was a perfume aficionado. Now in her early 40s, her collection of perfumes could buy several houses in Jingbei. So when the White group launched the perfume brand, Sophie, and even brought Nancy out of retirement, Serena was among the first to know. She had even bought the bottle with serial number 1 of Addiction, the first limited edition perfume launched by Sophie and Nancy. In other words, Serena was the very first person in Jingbei to buy Addiction. At Bella's words, Serena replied, "Yes, I know of it. I love the new product, Addiction, as well. Miss White, I'm so glad you've returned to the world of perfume. I'm a fan of your work. The White Group is currently looking for a brand ambassador for Sophie. Our idea is to have a different celebrity face for each new fragrance to highlight their uniqueness. It's said that your company, Miss Howard, is full of A-list stars and beauties. So, on behalf of the White Group, I would like to invite you and your company to enter into a strategic partnership with us." Bella hadn't expected the negotiation to be easy. Serena was known for her iron-fisted business acumen. Although Bella had given her a bottle of Love Actually, she couldn't be sure Serena would agree to a partnership. After all, the female artists under Howard Entertainment were all wildly popular, with countless fans, and all their commercial partnerships were carefully selected. This opportunity had come up suddenly, so Bella had come with no proposal, only her words. She wasn't confident she could seal the deal. But to her surprise, Serena agreed without a second thought. Of course, it would be an honor for my artists to be the face of Sophie's products. You can pick any of them. Just let me know which one you have your eye on, Miss White. Chapter 23, Bella was surprised by how easily Serena agreed and quickly said, "Great, I'll send someone to your company on Monday to discuss the details of our collaboration." But Serena waved her hand. "No need to rush. Just send me a message whenever you're free, Miss White." Even long after Serena had left, Bella was still in disbelief that she had so easily secured a collaboration with Serena's artists. While the name Nancy combined with the White Group was already a powerful brand, the immense fame and fan base of Howard Entertainment's artists were unparalleled. Henry looked at Bella's happy, dazed expression and couldn't help but smile. "All right, stop looking so goofy. Let's go, my treat. A celebration for getting everything you wanted: career success and ditching the jerk." Bella excitedly grabbed Henry's arm. Let's go, my treat. Order whatever you want. CEO White is paying for everything today." Henry patted Bella's head with a fond but helpless look. "I know, CEO White. How about we go for hot pot?" Bella looked down at her attire. Who wears a white evening gown to a hot pot restaurant? So, they first went home to change into casual clothes before heading to the hot pot place. Though Henry seemed like a party animal, he preferred quiet when it came to important matters, so he requested a private room at the restaurant. This was no cheap hot pot joint. The ingredients were top-notch. Even the shrimp paste was handmade from Australian lobster meat. This was the first time Bella had felt so relaxed since returning to the White family and the White Group. Having just dealt with Vivian and Ethan, and with the Sophie perfume brand now on the right track after securing 2 major partnerships, Bella was overjoyed. With work and personal matters settled for the moment, Bella could finally immerse herself in her identity as Nancy and focus on creating perfumes. After all, for a perfume brand to succeed, the product is king. Especially now that Bella had revealed her true identity as Nancy, she couldn't afford to tarnish her own reputation. Although Addiction, the first product launched by Nancy and the White Group, had received rave reviews, Bella was struggling to find inspiration for the next fragrance. Tomorrow was Friday, with the weekend just around the corner. So Bella decided to skip the office tomorrow and give herself a 3-day mini vacation to find inspiration for her new product. Lately, as the new CEO of the White Group, she had been busy managing the new brand Sophie while also trying to establish her authority and win over the staff at the White Group. She was exhausted. She felt like she was thinking about work even in her dreams, which was why she had sought Henry's help. In fact, Henry himself was quite busy but still made time to discuss work with her. Henry never liked to be served while eating, so he declined the waiter's offer to cook the food. Throughout the meal, Henry was the one adding ingredients to the pot, while Bella sat back like a queen, focused solely on eating. After a satisfying meal, Bella was clearly not ready for the night to end. She asked the man across from her, "Henry, aren't you usually the one with the most plans? How are you so free today, even showing up at Ethan's engagement party and now having dinner with me?" Chapter 24. Henry smiled, seemingly nonchalant. "Anything concerning my lady, Bella, is my business. Naturally, no one else compares. All other plans have to take a backseat." Bella took it as a joke and didn't think much of it. "Where are you usually at this time of night? A club or a bar?" Henry couldn't help but laugh. "Bella, what kind of person do you take me for? At this time, I'm usually talking serious business." Bella pouted, clearly skeptical. "Don't they all say young Master Lancaster loves places like these? Whenever I used to look for you, weren't you always saying you were at a bar? You think I go to a bar just to drink? There's a lot more to it than that." "Well, I want to go to a bar tonight. Do you have any plans? Or any recommendations? I've never been to one of those places." Hearing Bella's words, Henry raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised. "What's gotten into you today? I used to drag you and you'd never go. Why the sudden interest?" Bella was only 25. In her 20-plus years, she had always been the most well-behaved and obedient one. Bella was the classic other people's child, the so-called good girl. For the past 25 years, she had never set foot in a bar or a club because to the old Bella, those were places for good-for-nothing rich kids. Bella had always been prim and proper, but she never expected that at 22, she would do the most rebellious thing of her life. That year, she gave up her status as the heiress to a fortune just to marry the man she loved. But even during her 3 years of marriage to Ethan, Bella had never been to such places. Firstly, Ethan himself disliked socializing. He was always arrogant towards everyone, for reasons unknown. Secondly, Ethan would never have taken Bella to meet his friends, because in Ethan's mind, Bella was not presentable. Why would he take her to see his friends? Ethan's few friends only knew he had a considerate wife at home, but they had never seen him bring her out. His friends often teased him, saying he was hiding a treasure, unwilling to show her off. Was she that precious? But when Ethan heard these words, he would frown. "Hiding a treasure? Is she worthy? I just saw her as powerless and easy to control. She's nothing more than a decoration at home. She's not good enough to catch my eye. I married her only to appease my mother. After considering all aspects, she was a suitable candidate. I have no feelings for her." Chapter 25. 3 years ago, when Bella announced she was going to marry Ethan, everyone was shocked. The young lady who had never even been in a puppy love relationship wanted to marry a man who didn't love her, right after graduating from college. At the time, everyone around Bella tried to dissuade her, with her father, Quentin White, being the most shocked of all. Quentin adored his daughter and had always been proud of her because she was well-behaved, sensible, and exceptionally smart since she was a child. He never imagined that Bella's first act of rebellion would be so monumental. Quentin knew Bella's personality best: stubborn, competitive, and determined to achieve her goals. No one could stop her once she set her mind to something. So, with a heavy heart, Quentin let Bella go, allowing her to give up her position as a wealthy heiress and a promising future to become a housewife in the Montgomery family. But Quentin could never have imagined that the once favored child of fortune, Bella, would spend 3 such humiliating years in the Montgomery household. After Bella left the White family, Henry started going to bars more frequently. When Bella was around, she would never go to bars with Henry, so he would always make time to be with her, and naturally his bar visits were fewer. But after Bella left, Henry became even more of a party animal, a familiar face at almost every nightclub. He didn't fall into despair because of it. Fun was fun, but Henry's work ethic was second to none. He simply lived his 24-hour days as if they were 48. By day, he was the smiling tiger, young Master Lancaster. By night, he was the melancholic young master, drowning his sorrows in drink. Ironically, the extensive network he built while frequenting social scenes led to many business deals. It was just that in the 3 years since Bella left, even his smiles had become rarer. Seeing Henry zone out and not answer, Bella waved a hand in front of his face. "Henry? Henry, what are you thinking about? Did you hear what I said?" Henry finally snapped back to reality. "Sorry, I was just thinking about something. What did you say?" "I said I want to go to a bar. Do you have any plans?" Henry didn't answer directly, instead asking, "Bella, why do you suddenly want to go to a bar today? You never used to like those places." Bella propped her chin on her hand and murmured, "I think maybe I used to be prejudiced against them. I feel like my life for the past 25 years has been too limited. Look at today, when I went to crash Ethan's engagement party. There were so many people there, half of Jingbei's elite circle, yet not a single person recognized me, and they even questioned my identity. But as soon as you showed up, everyone knew you. If you hadn't suddenly appeared to save the day, I really wouldn't have known what to do. Honestly, I feel a huge gap. Your social network is so much better than mine, which means I used to be too antisocial. So I want to make a change, go out and socialize more. After all, I'm different now. I'm the CEO of the White Group, I can't afford to not know anyone." Hearing Bella's words, Henry helplessly stroked her head. "Bella, don't be so hard on yourself. You are already outstanding. There's no need for self-criticism. As for social connections, what's mine is yours. I can handle those things for you." Tears welled up in Bella's eyes. She said, "Henry, thank you for always taking care of me since we were kids. But I want to make other friends too, okay? Take me out just for the experience." Chapter 26, since they were young, Henry had never been able to refuse Bella's requests. So, after she said that, Henry had no choice but to agree. If Bella wanted to go to a bar and meet his friends, he would just take her. Henry made a quick call, and soon, someone sent him the details of a private room and an address. After confirming the location, Henry picked up his jacket from the hook, stood up, and gestured to Bella. "Let's go. They happen to be hanging out there tonight. I'll take you." Bella put on her trench coat, surprised by how quickly Henry had arranged everything. She couldn't help but tease him, as expected of young Master Lancaster, friends all over the world, so efficient. "I'm impressed," Henry laughed. "My Lady Bella wants to go for a drink. Of course, I have to arrange it as quickly as possible, right?" They exchanged a smile and walked out of the hot pot restaurant side by side. Bella familiarly settled into the passenger seat of Henry's supercar. Henry sat in the driver's seat, patiently waiting for Bella to touch up her makeup before starting the engine. The roar of the high-powered engine echoed through the streets of Jingbei. Henry avoided the congested traffic, taking a shortcut onto the elevated highway. The freedom of the supercar seemed out of place in the bustling city streets. It was only on these wide, open highways that its true charm was revealed. Bella rested her head on her hand, looking out at the undulating silhouettes of the trees. A sense of unprecedented peace washed over her. The cool evening breeze brushed against her face, lifting her long, wavy hair, filling the car with the sweet scent of her shampoo. Henry didn't turn his head, but the corners of his mouth curved into a smile. These quiet moments alone with Bella were precious to him, a scene he had dreamt of for the past 3 years. But Bella was completely unaware of these little secrets hidden in Henry's heart. It wasn't long before Henry's supercar arrived at its destination, pulling up in front of the most luxurious club in Jingbei. Henry got out of the car, surrounded by curious glances, but he ignored them all, simply walking over to the passenger side to open the door for Bella. Henry extended his hand and helped Bella out, then tossed the car keys to the club's valet. The arrival of Bella and Henry drew the attention of most people at the entrance. Some even let out a couple of whistles, calling out loudly, "Young Master Lancaster." Henry glanced in their direction, recognized them as casual acquaintances, and offered a silent, tight-lipped smile in response. This place had always been a melting pot. The wealthy heirs of Jingbei loved it here because of the variety of entertainment and its high-class atmosphere. Naturally, it also attracted plenty of social climbers, but Henry liked coming here simply because the owner was a friend of his. Henry's reputation was well known, and the moment his car pulled up, it announced his arrival. After all, his supercar was a limited edition, a testament to his noble status. As Henry and Bella approached the entrance, a doorman was already opening the door for them. The high decibel, explosive music hit them full force. Many eyes in the hall turned to the newly arrived Henry and Bella. Chapter 27, the indoor lighting was dim. As Bella curiously looked around, she instinctively moved closer to Henry, grabbing the corner of his coat to avoid getting lost. What Bella didn't notice was that the moment Henry walked in, the gazes of many women in the room were fixed on him, like predators spotting their prey. However, since Henry had brought Bella with him tonight, they wouldn't dare to approach and make a fool of themselves. But Henry did notice the look some men were giving Bella. He took Bella's hand from his coat, intertwining their fingers, and then shifted his body slightly to block their leering gazes. A closer look would reveal a hint of hostility in his eyes, like a lion whose territory was being encroached upon. Under her trench coat, Bella wore a sleeveless white bodycon dress, her long legs now on full display and catching everyone's eye. Her makeup was light, unlike the heavily made-up faces of others in the club. Yet with her striking features, she looked almost bewitching under the colorful, flashing lights. Bella's current look, both pure and alluring, was exactly the type that men found most captivating. The music in the club was too loud for a normal conversation, but shouting was not Henry's style. So Henry leaned in close to Bella, almost whispering in her ear, "Bella, I'll take you to a private room upstairs." Bella nodded obediently. She didn't even realize that she hadn't flinched when Henry leaned in so close, a testament to her complete trust in him. Henry led Bella to the elevator. As the doors closed, the deafening music was finally shut out. Seeing Bella's curious expression, Henry found it amusing and couldn't help but tease, "I thought you'd be scared. I didn't expect you to adapt so quickly." Bella tilted her head, as if his words were strange. "Why would I be scared? Do I seem that timid?" Before Henry could answer, she spoke again, "With you by my side, I'm not afraid." Henry froze at her words, his gaze on Bella becoming intense. Just as he was about to speak, the elevator chimed with a ding. "6th floor," a mechanical female voice announced as the doors opened. Henry had to let it go. A hostess was already waiting outside the elevator, a professional smile on her face. "Good evening, esteemed guests. Do you have a reservation? Which room are you headed to?" The quiet of the 6th floor was a stark contrast to the chaos of the 1st. The level of luxury here was clearly a step above. Bella stepped out of the elevator first. The moment her feet touched the carpet, she recognized that even the rug was a masterpiece from a famous designer. Hearing the hostess's question, Bella turned around, her small bag held behind her back, and asked Henry, "Henry, where are we going?" A familiar scene flashed before his eyes, and the bright overhead light momentarily transported Henry back to their high school days. Chapter 28. Back then, Bella also loved to walk backward in front of him, dressed in the school's standard white shirt and plaid skirt. Her ponytail would bounce with every step, and Henry's heart would bounce along with it. It wasn't until Bella stepped closer and pulled Henry out of the elevator that he snapped back to reality. Bella couldn't help but pat Henry's head, puzzled. "Henry, what's wrong with you today? Why do you keep spacing out? Are you tired from not getting enough rest?" Seeing this, the hostess standing by immediately lowered her head, avoiding their gaze. As a hostess on the floor with all the top-tier VIP rooms, Sally had learned to be discreet. She had seen Henry here many times, but this was the first time he had ever brought a female companion. Maintaining her professional composure, Sally's expression remained neutral. After all, she had worked here for years and had seen more than her fair share of drama. Nothing surprised her anymore, though she didn't recognize the bright-eyed, beautiful young woman before her. The fact that she could call Henry by his first name and even pat his head meant she was no ordinary person. With just one glance, Sally memorized Bella's face. Henry smiled and said, "Sorry, I was just thinking about some old times and got lost in thought." Bella asked suspiciously, "Really? Am I that boring to be around that you can get so lost in thought about other things?" Henry just smiled without answering and led Bella down the hallway. The owner of this club was an old friend of Henry's, so this particular private room was basically reserved for their group. Henry walked to the door, knocked, then turned the handle and pushed it open. This was the largest private room in the club, so big it even had a pool table and a mahjong machine. When Henry and Bella entered, the group, who had been in lively conversation, all turned to look at them. The massive sofa was barely occupied by 6 men, all of whom happened to be prominent figures. Bella could name every one of them, and 2 were even her and Henry's high school classmates. Seeing Henry and Bella arrive late, someone couldn't help but tease, "Young Master Lancaster, you already turned down our get-together. What brings you here now?" Another man raised his glass. "Henry, you were the one who said no +1s for the guys' night out. What's the deal with bringing your own? You just don't get it. Young Master Lancaster tells you not to bring anyone because he doesn't have anyone himself. He doesn't want to be the third wheel to the rest of us. But if he has someone, you can bet he'll be the first to show her off. What do you call that? Rules for thee, but not for me. Get it now?" Henry walked further into the room. "All right, that's enough. I couldn't make it today because I had something to do. But Bella wanted to come hang out, so I brought her to check it out." Bella stood behind Henry and looked at the man who had just been teasing them. She recognized him. His name was Chase Shaw, and he was a high school classmate of hers and Henry's. Chapter 29, Chase continued. Tusk, young Master Lancaster, your habit of prioritizing romance over friendship has been the same for 10 years, not a single change. We called you a dozen times, and you didn't even pick up. But the moment Miss White says she wants to come, you show up in a flash. At that moment, the aforementioned Bella finally chimed in. "Hello everyone, I'm Bella. I'm sorry for intruding like this." Chase's gaze shifted to Bella, and he quickly responded, "Miss White, you don't actually need to introduce yourself. Everyone here knows who you are. Henry is always talking about you to us, though he probably never mentions us to you since we're just his unimportant, plastic friends. Right, Henry?" Chase's gaze turned to Henry, but he was met with a light shove. "Stop being a clown." Bella, however, was amused by Chase's words. She said, "Not at all. I know you guys too. Chase, I remember you. You were my classmate in high school." Hearing Bella's words, Chase was stunned. "Oh my God, you actually remember me?" Bella had only attended school in the country until her first year of high school before being sent abroad by the White family. So, Bella and Chase had only been classmates for a year. Being remembered was truly an honor. It wasn't just Chase who was surprised. Even Henry looked astonished. "You don't even remember me, but you remember him?" Henry and Bella had been classmates since the first grade, but for that entire first year, they hadn't spoken a word. So much so that in second grade, when the teacher put them in the same group for a project, the 7-year-old Henry, still trying to be cool, extended his small hand to Bella and said, "Hello, Bella, pleasure to work with you." Henry had felt a flicker of nervousness because the little girl in front of him was as beautiful as a doll. To his surprise, Bella just tilted her head and asked, "Who are you?" Hearing her question back then, Henry's face had turned red with anger. He was, after all, a handsome little boy in the class. How could Bella not know who he was after being classmates for over a year? Henry had thought Bella just had a bad memory because she was never particularly close with their classmates. But she had only been in the same class as Chase for a year. How could she remember him so clearly? Bella replied without hesitation, "Of course, I remember, because he's your friend." Henry never expected that Bella had remembered Chase because of him. His earlier displeasure vanished instantly. Indeed, he and Chase had been good friends since high school. Hearing Bella's answer, the previously smug Chase immediately felt like he'd been hit by a ton of bricks. Chase couldn't help but heckle, "Oh, so I'm just basking in Henry's glory, am I?" Bella smiled without a word, tacitly agreeing with Chase. Henry led Bella to a seat on the sofa. As soon as she sat down, Henry thoughtfully placed a blanket on her lap. Then, the other 5 men greeted Bella one by one. Chapter 30. Chase was a naturally talkative person. He sat near Bella and said, "Miss White, I saw the video of you taking down the homewrecker this afternoon. It was so badass. I was wondering where Henry went this afternoon. Turns out he was there to back you up. Seriously, Henry should have called me. I've had it with that Ethan Montgomery guy for a while now, acting all high and mighty all day, ignoring such a beautiful wife to go after that Vivian Sutton." Hearing Chase's words, Henry let out a sharp tusk, about to stop him, but Bella waved her hand, signaling that she didn't mind. Chase was a straightforward person who wore his heart on his sleeve. Because of his friendship with Henry, he had long considered Bella one of his own, so he spoke without a filter. People like him didn't have many hidden motives, which made them easy to get along with. Bella enjoyed interacting with people like that, so she couldn't help but laugh. Yeah, he really doesn't have great taste. Realizing he had misspoken, Chase quickly tried to backtrack. It's fine. You have to say goodbye to the wrong person to meet the right one. Miss White, look, our Henry is a pretty great guy. At his words, Henry nonchalantly tilted his head, eager to hear Bella's response. Bella glanced at Henry and nodded in agreement with Chase's statement. You're right, Henry is indeed a great guy. Sensing a chance, Chase seized the opportunity to add more fuel to the fire. Miss White, you have no idea. In the 3 years you were away, Henry was not quite himself. Henry not being himself? This piqued Bella's curiosity. She asked, "Oh, how so?" Chase said mysteriously. Miss White, you don't know. For the first few months after you married Ethan, Henry was constantly drunk, looking absolutely heartbroken. Then something must have snapped in him. He stopped clinging to the bottle and threw himself into work, becoming the most work-obsessed person at the Lancaster Group. In short, he was just off. Even on the day you came back from the Montgomerys, Henry had asked us to go out for drinks, looking completely lost. But that day, right after we opened the first bottle, he got a call from you. When he heard you were coming back, he was like he'd been shot with adrenaline, so excited. He immediately ditched us to go pick you up. Before he left, he told us to drink as much as we wanted, his treat. Miss White, in short, you've always been someone very different to Henry. Chapter 31. After hearing Chase's words, Bella was momentarily stunned. Bella was no fool. In fact, she was very intelligent. So, with Chase's words laid out so plainly, she understood the meaning behind them. So, the person Henry had loved all along was her. So, Henry's frequent visits to bars were because he was heartbroken after she married Ethan. Chase's words were like a wake-up call for Bella. Thinking about it now, she suddenly recalled many things she had never noticed before. She remembered that from elementary school to high school, besides her, there seemed to be no other girls around Henry. At first, Bella thought it was just because the White and Lancaster families were old family friends, so Henry had to be nice to her. Moreover, Uncle Lancaster was very fond of her and always told Henry, as the older brother, to take care of his younger sister. So Bella naturally assumed that Henry's kindness was just him treating her like a sister. After all, Henry was the youngest in his family. Now that he finally had a chance to be an older brother to her, he had to set an example. As her childhood friend, she always felt at ease when Henry was around. Over the years, Bella had grown accustomed to Henry's kindness, accustomed to the fact that whenever she turned around, she would always see Henry following close behind. Bella once thought that all of this was just because Henry was her best friend. But it wasn't until today, when Chase pointed it out, that Bella realized how ridiculous her assumptions had been all these years. Henry's kindness towards her wasn't born out of some familial or friendly affection. It was a blatant, undisguised favoritism. Even all of Henry's friends could see it, yet she, the person at the center of it all, had remained oblivious. And she had still considered Henry her best friend, sharing all her secrets with him. Bella suddenly couldn't bear to think about what Henry must have been feeling when she told him she wanted to marry Ethan. The person he had loved for so many years was ultimately slipping through his fingers. Henry's care for her was always unconditional and meticulous, no less than what she had once done for Ethan. A sour feeling welled up in Bella's heart. What had Henry been thinking during their 3 years apart? In fact, it was more than 3 years. She had gone abroad in her first year of high school and only returned after finishing her master's degree, a span of 5 years. Not long after she came back, she rebelled against her family to marry Ethan. Yet, every time Bella returned, whether from studying abroad or after her divorce from Ethan, Henry seemed to be standing in the same place, as if he had never left, as if he was always waiting for her to come back. He had watched her leave time and time again. What must have been going through his mind? Was he cursing her for being dense? Was he secretly calling her heartless? Chapter 32. Seeing Bella fall silent after hearing Chase's words, Henry's heart sank. He spoke up, "Chase, what nonsense are you talking about? Don't over-interpret my actions. I think I'm perfectly normal." Chase also realized he had probably misspoken. He had intended to flatter, but he had ended up stepping on a landmine. Now that Henry had given him an out, he wasn't about to refuse it. So Chase immediately followed up, Right, I was just talking nonsense. Miss White, just take it as a joke, don't take it to heart." But Bella wasn't that foolish. She shot up from the sofa, grabbed Henry's sleeve, and pulled him, her tone a little awkward. "You, come with me for a second." Seeing Bella and Henry's movements, the other 6 people in the room exchanged glances. But before they could say anything, Bella had already dragged Henry out of the private room. Chase couldn't help but worry. Oh no, I've exposed the secret Henry has been hiding for so many years. How am I going to clean this up? Is Henry going to make me pay with my life later? Another man, with a calm expression, said nonchalantly, "It's fine. This day was bound to come sooner or later. Henry has kept this to himself for so many years. It's good that you helped him spill it. Otherwise, are we supposed to watch him secretly love Bella for the rest of his life? Honestly, I'm tired of this melodrama. A quick resolution is better. As they say, it's better to rip the Band-Aid off quickly." Chase found that reasonable. Yeah, it's been so many years. If they don't break through this barrier now, how long will Henry have to wait? Besides, I don't think Miss White is completely uninterested in Henry. Maybe this time, they'll actually get together. Bella dragged Henry out of the room and pulled him to the window at the end of the hallway. Henry looked at Bella's hesitant expression and tried to lighten the mood. "What's wrong? You actually believed Chase's words?" Seeing Henry's nonchalant expression, Bella punched him in frustration. "This guy, how could he act so casual?" Bella asked, a little angrily. "Henry, I'm asking you, do you have feelings for me?" Hearing Bella's blunt question, the playful expression on Henry's face disappeared. He looked at Bella and simply said, "Yes." Bella asked again, "When did it start? How long has it been?" Henry leaned his hand on the windowsill and looked out at the myriad lights of Jingbei. His voice was faint, as if it might be carried away by the wind at any moment. "Too long, so long that I've forgotten when it began. Bella, I'm a very nostalgic person. The person who was once within my reach, I thought she would always walk by my side, but she left me time and time again. I was afraid she wouldn't be able to find me when she came back, so I've been waiting in the same place, so that whenever she's willing to turn around, she can see me at a glance. Because I promised her that I would always be behind her, her strongest support." Chapter 33, How could Bella not understand the meaning behind Henry's words? The helplessness and deep affection in his voice made her feel a pang of sourness. Tears had already welled up in Bella's eyes. Now, her big, watery eyes blinked, looking utterly pitiful. "Henry, why did you never tell me these things? You should have told me." Henry hadn't expected this response from Bella. He looked at her and saw her eyes full of tears, and his heart instantly softened. He gently wiped away a tear from the corner of her eye with his thumb and comforted her softly. "Bella, the reason I didn't tell you is precisely because I didn't want to see you like this. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to cause you any trouble. Being your especially good friend was already wonderful. Why would I need to add to your worries with these things?" Bella could no longer hold back. She leaned into Henry's embrace and began to sob quietly. Between sobs, she incoherently blamed him. "Henry, don't you stand there playing the magnanimous gentleman. How could anyone love someone and not want to be with them? Don't you dare say you've never thought that way." Henry gently stroked Bella's back. Hearing her words, he couldn't help but chuckle. He admitted, I have thought about it." How could he not have? He thought about it every single day. Soon, a small, damp patch from Bella's tears stained Henry's chest. When Bella lifted her face, she noticed her mascara had smudged from crying, even leaving faint black marks on Henry's white shirt. Bella tugged at his shirt, staring at the black smudges, and muttered resentfully, "What a useless mascara." Then she looked up and met Henry's smiling eyes. Despite her disheveled state, Bella felt no embarrassment. She had already embarrassed herself in front of Henry too many times over the years. It seemed he had seen all of her most awkward moments. How could Henry still like her after seeing so many sides of her for a decade? Bella couldn't help but think that Henry might be a little slow on the uptake. "I got your shirt dirty. I'll buy you a new one." Henry didn't stand on ceremony, smiling as he replied, "All right." Seeing Henry still staring at her, Bella felt a little shy. She glared at him and asked, "What are you staring at me for? I'm just waiting for your answer." "What answer?" Bella asked, puzzled. "You asked me why I didn't tell you I liked you sooner, didn't you? Well, I'm telling you now. Bella, I like you, and I've liked you for many years. So, what's your answer?" Chapter 34. Faced with Henry's sudden directness, Bella was at a loss. She avoided his intense gaze, her eyes darting away as she stammered, I need to think about it. As if not surprised by her answer, Henry smiled dotingly. All right, Bella, I'll wait for your answer, no matter how long it takes. His words made Bella's face flush. She felt as though ever since Chase had broken the ice between them, every word Henry said sounded like a line from a love poem. It was as if he had suddenly unlocked some hidden talent. Was this the same sarcastic and carefree Henry she knew? So Bella left the window and said, I'm going home. Henry teased, What's wrong? Weren't you here to socialize and have a drink? Why are you going home already? My makeup is ruined, I'm not drinking anymore. With that, Bella headed for the elevator. Henry pulled her back, signaling for her to wait. He then went back to the private room to get her bag and phone from the seat. When Henry walked in, the 6 men in the room fell silent, their eyes all fixed on his expression. From what Chase knew of Henry over the years, his current demeanor suggested he wasn't in a bad mood, but he certainly wasn't in a good one either. So Chase still felt a little intimidated, afraid of saying the wrong thing and upsetting the young master. Henry picked up Bella's phone and bag, then looked at the group of people staring at him expectantly. What's with you guys? Did you all go mute when I came in? I'm taking Bella home now. I'll treat you all next time. Just pretend I was never here, you guys carry on. Seeing that Henry hadn't mentioned what they wanted to hear, Chase grew anxious. Wait, Henry, you and Miss White were out there talking for so long. Did anything come of it? Henry pursed his lips and said faintly, Well, she said, she needs to think about it. That night, after getting home, Bella had intended to work for a while, but whenever she was quiet, Henry's face would pop into her mind. It was impossible to work in this state, so she had no choice but to take a shower and go to bed. But lying in her own bed, she tossed and turned, unable to fall asleep. She had never imagined that one day Henry would confess to her. Now, suddenly having to consider a different kind of relationship with him, she felt a little flustered. In truth, from any angle, Henry was flawless. Henry was the only person in Bella's life who knew all her secrets, including the fact that she was the famous perfumer Nancy. Before Bella publicly revealed it at Ethan's engagement party, Henry was the only one who knew she was Nancy. His family background was comparable to hers. He was handsome, had a good personality, and apart from her, he never looked at another woman. He would accompany her in anything she did, was incredibly attentive, and her father adored him. Even in work, he could offer her significant help and advice. All in all, Henry seemed to outshine Ethan by a mile in every aspect. Bella suddenly fell silent. So, having known someone as wonderful as Henry for so many years, how on earth did she end up falling for Ethan, the jerk who used her and let her be the third wheel? When Bella had been in love with Ethan, she had thought she would bring this man, who seemed to be high on a pedestal, down to earth. But Bella later discovered that he was just an illusion, a reflection in the water, one of the most unreliable things in the world. Chapter 35. Bella didn't know how long she lay in bed with her mind racing before she finally drifted off to sleep. The next morning, Bella woke up in her large bed, stretched, and pulled open the curtains. A thin layer of sunlight bathed the outside, a rare spell of good weather for late autumn. Seeing this long-awaited warmth, Bella's mood brightened. The development of Sophie's new perfume series had been shelved for too long. Addiction, the fragrance she had launched under the name Nancy, was already starting to feel a bit dated. So, her top priority was to innovate quickly. After all, the entire burden of research and development rested on her shoulders. She wore many hats, and the weight on her was heavy. Especially since this would be the first new product she launched after revealing her true identity. She couldn't afford to tarnish Nancy's reputation, could she? After freshening up, Bella planned to head to her exclusive perfume lab, but after a moment's thought, she sent a message to Henry. Bella, morning, are you busy today? Henry replied almost instantly. Good morning, what's up? You've already made up your mind after just one night? That's faster than I expected. Seeing Henry bring up the matter of her decision, Bella blushed even through the screen, as if she could hear his teasing voice in her ear. Bella, I haven't decided, but I'm going to the lab today to look for inspiration. Henry, so what Miss Nancy means is she'd like to invite me to join her. Though it was a question, Henry's tone was one of certainty. Caught so red-handed, Bella felt a little embarrassed and replied with just one sentence. The lab locks at 10 sharp. Come or don't." Then, Bella put down her phone and started getting ready to leave. A moment later, Bella's phone screen lit up with Henry's reply. "Got it, Bella. I promised to be there early." The perfume lab, as a perfumer's creative sanctuary, was an extremely private and intimate space. Generally, perfumers with private labs would not allow outsiders to enter. This was because perfumers are particularly sensitive to smells. If an outsider entered the lab, it would be contaminated with scents that didn't belong, disrupting the perfumer's sense of smell and workflow, making their work less efficient. So, for all intents and purposes, a perfume lab was not a place to be shared. But not only did Henry know the location of Bella's private lab, he was also granted special permission to enter. This was a privilege that was absolutely unique. In fact, long before Bella herself realized it, she had already made many exceptions for Henry. It turned out they had always been each other's exceptions. Chapter 36. Bella was surprised to see Henry already waiting for her when she drove up to the perfume laboratory. She glanced at the time, astonished. It was only 9:41. How had Henry arrived so early? After Bella parked her car, Henry was already standing by her driver's side door, holding it open for her. Bella placed her hand in Henry's outstretched one and got out of the car. She asked in surprise, "Why did you get here even earlier than me?" Henry smiled. "Because I know you well enough. I know you're always 15 minutes early, no matter what. So I made sure to be here waiting before you arrived." Bella said with some amazement, "Goodness, Henry, I never realized you were so thoughtful." Henry teased, "Well, I'm just trying to make a good impression, so you'll hurry up and decide whether to accept my confession." Hearing him bring it up again, Bella didn't want to face the question directly. She quickly unlocked the lab door and went inside. Henry found Bella's hasty retreat amusing. He shook his head with a smile and followed her in. Bella's lab was decorated entirely to her liking. She had already put on her gloves and lab coat, and after getting Henry fitted with the same gear, led him to another room. The room was filled with all sorts of bottles and jars. It was Henry's first time here, and even for someone as worldly as him, the sheer number of containers was staggering. Bella led Henry to one of the walls and explained, "These bottles and jars contain different scents. Each little bottle is labeled with what it smells like. I'm going into the inner lab to work on a fragrance. While I'm gone, could you pick out a few scents you like and bring them out? I'll take a look when I'm done with my experiment, okay?" Bella was a bit spoiled by Henry, so she rarely asked for his opinion because he would always go along with her wishes. So when Bella actually asked for his input, Henry obediently replied, "Okay." Just as Bella was about to leave, Henry called out to her again. "Bella, how should I choose? Do I just pick any scent I like? I could probably pick dozens." Bella patiently explained, "I usually use a method of association. For example, what does summer smell like to you? You can even try to capture abstract concepts. Like, what do you think love should smell like? Or what a person you like should smell like? Anyway, you can pick a few. It's not guaranteed that all the chosen scents will blend well together. But a perfume has top, middle, and base notes and can be a mix of up to 10 different scents, so you can choose several." As Bella spoke, Henry propped his head on his hand and watched her. Seeing his expression, Bella gave him a light tap and asked, "Are you even listening to me? By the way, everything here is my treasure. If you knock over any of my bottles or put the wrong cap on, I might just have to break up with you." Henry nodded, looking as obedient as could be. "Got it, Professor Bella." Chapter 37. Henry's directness made Bella's heart race and her face flush. She quickly fled the scene, rushing into the inner lab to begin her work. Lately, Bella had been so busy with matters at the White group that it had been a long time since she had been in her lab. As Bella stroked the familiar equipment, she felt a long-lost sense of belonging. Every time she created a perfume, a profound sense of tranquility would wash over her. Unlike the fast-paced and volatile world of business, the art of perfumery required a calm and steady mind. This kind of artistic creation demanded complete immersion and enjoyment to produce outstanding work. Bella's breakthrough creation, Love Actually, was blended when she had just fallen for Ethan. Intense emotions can stimulate one's artistic senses, and it was then that Bella created the globally sensational Love Above All. Her comeback piece, Addiction, had a Chinese name that meant addiction. evoking a lingering emotion that was captivating and obsessive. This time, however, Bella wanted to create a piece with a touch of bittersweetness, like the declaration of a poignant, secret crush. She tinkered in the lab for a long time, finally producing a small bottle of pale orange liquid. This was probably the most challenging piece Bella had ever created. She adjusted the top and base notes countless times, tweaking the formula and ratios to achieve the perfect balance she envisioned. After 17 adjustments, Bella dabbed a drop of the final product onto a scent strip, waved it, and took a whiff. A satisfied smile finally graced her lips. Bella was confident that once this creation hit the market, it would surely surpass her previous work, Love Actually. She decanted the liquid from the experimental vessel into a perfume bottle, then tidied up her messy workspace. Just moments ago, she had already named her new creation Crush. Crush, a love that is passionate yet shy, fleeting, a crowded room, a love at first sight. Bella's lab was fitted with two-way glass, so as Henry was choosing scents outside, he could see Bella's busy figure inside. Henry was a very decisive person. Once he figured out the arrangement of the scents, he quickly picked out the ones he liked. He categorized the scents he wanted, opening each one to smell it, then placing the ones he didn't like as much to the right and his favorites to the left. This made the process highly efficient. If Bella had been there, she would have marveled at how Henry, the top science student of their year, could apply his logical thinking even to such a simple task. So, in just 25 minutes, Henry had already completed the task Bella had given him. When Henry looked up from the array of bottles, he saw Bella, brows furrowed, carefully adding drops of colored liquid into a test tube. They say that people are most captivating when they are focused, and Henry thought that was absolutely true. Bella was already fair-skinned, and the white lab coat she wore made her look even paler. Perhaps because she had woken up early or because she was here to create a perfume, Bella wasn't wearing any makeup today. Her bare face made her look even younger. She wore clear safety goggles, her brows knitted in concentration as she adjusted the fragrance's ratio. Henry put the extra bottles back in their original places, then sat down, propping his head on his hand, and just quietly watched the busy Bella in the lab. Apparently, the scent she had created wasn't to her satisfaction, as she was now frowning and readjusting the formula. Henry watched her quietly, as if he could never get enough. By the time Bella finally finished and came out, it was already past lunchtime. Henry had wanted to order some food, but he knew Bella never ate in the lab, and he didn't dare to interrupt her, so he just waited silently outside. It wasn't until the clock hands pointed to 1:30 in the afternoon that Bella finally emerged from the lab, holding a small bottle. She looked overjoyed, her expression radiant as she looked at Henry. "Henry, I did it." Chapter 38. Henry looked at Bella's sparkling eyes and couldn't help but smile. "Yes, Bella, I knew you could do it. Henry, I want you to be the first person to experience this perfume." As she spoke, Bella took Henry's hand and sprayed a pump of the fragrance onto the back of it. The pale orange liquid trickled down the back of his hand. Bella looked at him expectantly, gesturing for him to take a sniff. Henry brought his hand to his nose, and a delicate fragrance filled his senses. The initial scent was slightly sour, the middle notes seemed a bit tart, but the base notes were full of sweetness. "Well?" Bella asked eagerly. Henry, as if deliberately teasing her, smoothed the liquid that was about to drip onto the floor over his hand before finally saying, "Bella, you are a genius at perfumery." Bella had received countless compliments and praises throughout her life. She had become so desensitized to such flattery that she would usually just offer a polite smile. But for some reason, Henry's praise felt incredibly satisfying. Perhaps it was because people like Henry, being so outstanding themselves, rarely complimented others. Bella raised her eyebrows with a touch of pride. "Of course, don't you know who I am?" She placed the perfume bottle in her special refrigerated storage and said happily, "Henry, you know, I had specifically set aside 3 to 4 days to come to the studio to find inspiration. I haven't had any good ideas lately, so I made sure to leave extra time. But I can't believe I created such a satisfying piece on the very first morning. It seems like fate is on my side. I believe that in time, Sophie will become the #1 perfume brand in the country." When you like someone, seeing them happy makes you happy too. So seeing Bella in such a good mood, Henry's own spirits lifted. Bella, are you hungry? It's already past lunchtime. I was going to order some food here, but then I remembered you absolutely don't allow food in the lab, so I had to scrap that idea. But I didn't want to disturb you, because I know that when you have an inspiration, you can't be interrupted, or it might break your train of thought. So I was stuck, not knowing whether to come in or stay out. I ended up just waiting for you quietly outside. I had no idea you'd be so late. If you're hungry, I can take you to get something to eat now. We can come back and you can continue working after we eat. Bella glanced at the wall clock and realized that over 3 hours had passed without her noticing. It was almost 2 in the afternoon, well past lunchtime. She had been so engrossed in mixing her fragrance that she hadn't noticed how quickly the time had flown by. But to go from a spark of inspiration to a finished product in just over 3 hours was something Bella herself was extremely pleased with. Even if it meant missing her meal, it was definitely worth it. Bella had eaten a big breakfast, so she didn't feel particularly hungry at the moment. "I'm not actually that hungry," she said. "I was thinking of taking advantage of my current momentum to create a few more bottles." Henry shook his head. "Hungry or not, you need to come with me to get something to eat and rest. You can't keep up this level of intense work. Perfumery requires a lot of mental energy and focus. Over 3 hours of intense concentration is already very draining on your body and mind. You need to take a break, eat something to replenish your energy, and then come back to work. Otherwise, what's the point of ruining your health for work? That's putting the cart before the horse." Chapter 39. Bella thought Henry had a point, so she took off her special lab coat and hung it on the nearby rack. As she walked past the spot where Henry had been sitting, she noticed that he had neatly arranged the scent vials he had chosen on the table, each one in a perfect row. The 9 bottles and jars stood side by side, lined up in a straight line. Bella walked over to the table, pleased. "Henry, you really do have a touch of OCD, don't you? Even these little bottles are arranged in a perfectly straight line." Then, like an inspector, she carefully checked to see if any of the other bottles and jars were out of place. Since the bottles were only labeled with names and not numbers, even Bella herself would misplace them from time to time. But after a full circle, she was amazed to find that Henry hadn't misplaced a single one. Seeing the surprise on Bella's face, Henry already knew what she was going to say. He raised his eyebrows smugly. "Well, not a single one out of place, right? I'm pretty amazing, huh? Goodness, how did you do that? I must have 800, if not 1,000, bottles here. It took me a lot of time to memorize their locations, and you, on your first visit, didn't misplace a single one." Henry took Bella's hand and started leading her out. "That's a secret I'm not telling you. Let's go, time to eat." Since Bella needed to return to the lab after lunch, they didn't go to a restaurant far away, just found a decent-looking place in the nearest shopping center. It wasn't until they were seated that Bella realized they had walked into a couple's restaurant. All the tables were for 2 or 4, and the place was filled with a romantic ambience, adorned with roses. When Bella opened the menu, she saw it was filled with various couples' set meals. If this had happened before, Bella probably wouldn't have thought much of it. But since learning about Henry's feelings for her yesterday, she had become sensitive to words like couple. It seemed she wasn't quite ready to accept the shift in her relationship with Henry. So Bella randomly pointed to the best-selling set meal on the menu and said, "Let's just have this one." Then she quickly handed the menu back to the waiter, not even letting Henry see it. Seeing Bella's unusual behavior, Henry was puzzled. "Bella, what's wrong? You won't even let me see the menu." In fact, Henry had already figured it out. When they walked in, he had noticed the restaurant had no name, but seeing that all the customers were in pairs, he realized it must be a couple's restaurant. Knowing that Bella had walked in unintentionally, Henry didn't have any other thoughts. It was Bella who seemed strange after realizing it was a couple's restaurant. Henry couldn't help but find it amusing. "Bella, did yesterday's events put too much pressure on you? In the past, you wouldn't have cared about walking into the wrong restaurant." Now that her thoughts were exposed, Bella had no choice but to confess. "Well, I even had trouble sleeping last night. Henry, honestly, I've never thought about what it would be like for us to be together, so I might need some time to process this." Bella's words were direct, but Henry cleverly caught the main point. Bella said she needed time to accept the change in their relationship, but she hadn't expressed any rejection. Bella, when you say you need time to process this, does that mean you're not rejecting me? Chapter 40. Henry's question hit the nail on the head. Bella searched her heart. From yesterday until now, her emotions had shifted from shock to heartache, from heartache to shyness. But she had never once felt the urge to refuse or any sense of aversion. Didn't this prove that deep down, Bella had already accepted Henry? Henry's words were a revelation. Bella suddenly understood her own feelings for him. Like a cloud parting in her mind, she finally found the reason for her turmoil last night. Henry, you're right. I don't mean to reject you. I feel like, over the years, I've unconsciously become dependent on you. I'm willing to share all my secrets with you, and whenever something happens, you're the first person I think of. So I think, let's give it a try. Henry could hardly believe his ears. Bella, do you mean we should try dating? Yes, let's give it a try, but I've never been in a relationship before. Even though I was married to Ethan for 3 years, he didn't love me. We have no shared memories. It was all a one-sided act from me. I think I might be a bit possessive in a relationship, a little prone to jealousy, and I like surprises and grand gestures. In short, I'm probably quite high maintenance. If you're willing to give it a try with me, you need to be prepared, because I might be different in a relationship than I am in everyday life. Bella rambled on, about to list more things, but Henry cut her off, his voice filled with excitement. Bella, no matter what version of you it is, I will love it. All your sensitivities, your vulnerabilities, your insecurities, I will soothe them all. Bella herself never expected that just by going out for a meal, she would end up with a boyfriend. Even after Henry dropped her back at the lab, Bella still felt a little dazed. Since they had confirmed their relationship before the couple's set meal arrived, every dish that came out felt less like a source of awkwardness and more like a blessing. From the appetizer to the dessert, every dish had a name with a wonderful meaning, wishing for lovers to find their happy ending and grow old together. And it had to be said, the food at this restaurant was actually delicious. After Henry and Bella returned to the lab, Bella finally remembered why she had asked Henry to help her pick out scents in the first place. Initially, Bella had asked Henry to pick out a few scents he liked, because she was short on inspiration and hoped to find some in his choices. Who would have thought that she would so successfully create a new perfume that very morning? Although the immediate crisis was resolved, there was no reason to let perfectly good inspiration go to waste. So Bella pulled Henry over to the row of bottles and jars and asked, "Henry, what was the theme for the scents you picked?" Henry, however, countered with a question of his own. "And what was the theme of the perfume you just created?" "That one. It's about love at first sight, a love that is both passionate and shy." "Henry, you were the inspiration for that perfume. So, to be precise, that perfume was made for you." A satisfied smile spread across Henry's face. "Well, the scents I chose were also themed around you." "Really?" Bella's face showed her surprise. She picked up the small bottles and looked at them one by one. Peach, cherry blossom, candy, rose. Why did you choose such pink, sweet, and sugary scents? She looked at Henry suspiciously, only to meet his gaze, which was as soft and gentle as water. "Because in my heart, you are as sweet as they are." Chapter 40. Bella had always thought that she and Henry were so familiar with each other that even as a couple, it would be hard to feel that heart-fluttering excitement. After all, they had known each other for so many years and had seen every side of each other. Would there really be moments that made her heart race? Bella shared her thoughts with Henry, suggesting they could skip the honeymoon phase and go straight to a comfortable, old married couple dynamic, which sounded nice to her. However, upon hearing this, young Master Lancaster, after a long day at the Lancaster Group, was not pleased. He immediately pinned Bella to the sofa and gave her a long, passionate kiss. Dizzy from the kiss, Bella could clearly hear her own thunderous heartbeat. Seeing her in this state, the culprit wore a triumphant expression. Well, feeling that heart-racing sensation now? From then on, Bella and Henry fell into the passionate honeymoon phase that all new couples go through. After Bella's high-profile takedown at Ethan's engagement party, she had become a hot topic in Jingbei's elite circles. Even Quentin White had seen the video of Bella denouncing Ethan. When Bella got home, he praised her repeatedly. "Bella, well done. I've been wanting to expose that kid Ethan for a while now. I was wondering how I was going to trip him up, but you taking revenge with your own hands is just brilliant. Let's see how Ethan can show his face now." Seeing her father like this, Bella found it amusing. "Dad, how did you see that video too? It was so embarrassing, no one even recognized your daughter." "My daughter, Quentin White's daughter, is someone they are worthy of recognizing. These people, honestly, they didn't even think that no one in Jingbei would dare to impersonate my daughter. But it's really thanks to that kid Henry for saving the day. I never thought that boy, who seems so carefree, could be so reliable when it counts." Hearing her father's words, Bella pretended to be angry. "Dad, don't you talk about my boyfriend like that. Henry is not carefree. He's very serious and outstanding, you know." Seeing Bella's protective stance, Quentin clicked his tongue. Tusk, you two are so lovey-dovey. I think I should pay a visit to the Lancaster family tomorrow and discuss your marriage with old Lancaster." "Wait a minute, I'm the one giving my daughter away. Old Lancaster should be visiting me, no, I need to call him and give him a little nudge." With that, Quentin hurried upstairs, not giving Bella a chance to interject. Bella wanted to stop him, but on second thought, her relationship with Henry was so stable that they were bound to get married sooner or later. It didn't seem like a problem for their parents to start planning the wedding early. After all, for wealthy families like theirs, getting married was a complicated process, not something that could be decided on a whim. So Bella let her father be and happily went back to her phone call with Henry. Several months had passed since Ethan's engagement party. During this time, Ethan had tried to see Bella more than once. In fact, he had tried to see her many times, but each time, he had his assistant make an appointment. By the 20th time her assistant reported an appointment request from the Montgomery Corporation, Bella was so exasperated she had to laugh. Ethan was always like this, with his high and mighty attitude. Even when it came to making amends and apologizing, he had to do it through an assistant. How could Bella possibly accept such a cold and impersonal apology? But Bella had forgotten that she had blocked Ethan's phone number and his email address along with it. Still, if Ethan truly wanted to contact her, there was no way he couldn't have found a way. After Bella rejected Ethan's 20th meeting request, he finally appeared at the White family's doorstep. Chapter 42, a while ago, after Crush was launched, it was met with a frenzy of demand. This time, Sophie did not release the perfume as a limited edition. The concept of Crush was the love of a first glance, a love that everyone could have. How could there be a limit to it? Therefore, as soon as the perfume was launched, it sold out repeatedly. This led to Bella often working overtime to handle matters related to the Sophie brand. At 8 in the evening, with the moon already hanging high in the sky, Bella finally returned home, only to see a figure standing at her gate from a distance. Even in the dim twilight, Bella recognized him at a glance. It was Ethan. After all, she had stubbornly loved him from behind for 3 years. She could recognize him even if he were reduced to ashes. At this point, facing Ethan, Bella had truly let go. There was no longer a surge of love nor a burning hatred. To her, Ethan was perhaps just the most familiar of strangers. "Bella." Before Bella could speak, Ethan spoke first. But such an intimate form of address sent a chill down Bella's spine, because in their 3 years together, Ethan had never called her that. Bella stopped a short distance from Ethan, her voice devoid of emotion. "Mr. Montgomery, what is the meaning of you coming to my house so late?" "Bella, I just wanted to." Before Ethan could finish, Bella cut him off coldly. "Mr. Montgomery, I don't think we're close enough to be on a first-name basis." "Ethan, I don't care what you came here to do or say, but I don't want to hear any of it. If you're here to apologize, I'm sorry, I don't accept your apology. If you're here to make peace, there's even less need for that because I will never forgive you. If you're here to talk about a collaboration, then I'm even more baffled. A man as professional as you, Mr. Montgomery, wouldn't need to come in person to discuss business, would he? By the way, you probably don't know, but I have a boyfriend now. Henry and I are very happy together. When we get married, I'll send you an invitation. So, is there anything else, Mr. Montgomery?" Including the engagement party, this was the second time Ethan had seen Bella so vibrant and prickly. He used to find her personality too soft, without any character, nothing for him to like. But now that Bella had returned to her true self, it had nothing to do with him anymore. Ethan looked at Bella's lively expression with a sense of longing, as if trying to etch her into his heart. He had to admit, he truly regretted how he had treated her before. It just seemed to be too late. Seeing Ethan staring at her without a word, Bella's patience wore thin. "Mr. Montgomery, please see yourself out." Bella turned to open her door but was stopped once again by Ethan's voice. "Bella, whether you accept it or not, I have to say, I was wrong for the past 3 years. I saw how good you were to me during that time. I don't expect you to forgive me, but if you ever need my help in the future, I will definitely help you." "Ethan, you really haven't changed your arrogant ways. What makes you think you have anything I could possibly need help with? I have the White family and Henry. I will never need you." With that, Bella slammed the door shut, cutting Ethan off. Through the massive floor-to-ceiling windows of the White family's villa, Ethan watched Bella's angry figure ascend to the second floor. In that moment, he seemed to understand the feelings Bella had for him over the past 3 years, a sour affection. He always seemed to make her sad and angry. He really didn't know how to please her. In fact, he had come this time to say to her, "I'm sorry, thank you, I love you," but it was all too late. The person he loved would never look back. Because she had already taken someone else's hand and was heading toward happiness, never to return. Bella would never stop for him again.